Yeah, good afternoon, participants. I welcome all of you to the day 3 of this 5-day online FDP on cybersecurity sponsored by AICTE ATAL Academy. I welcome all of you once again for the day 3 sessions. We begin with our first session on day 3. Over to you, sir. Bharat sir, are you there?
Yeah, yeah, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
over to
audible,
you.
ma'am.
Yeah, you are audible, sir. You can go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session. So let me start by sharing my screen. Okay. I hope is my screen visible for everyone.
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, let's start the session. So before starting up today's session, let us just have a small recall about what we discussed in the previous session. So in the previous session, we had discussed, we were going to, I mean, we were performing the things like in practical part of exploitation and our 5 phases of hacking, where we saw the end-to-end procedure right from our information gathering phase, where we use port scanning, enumeration, and vulnerability scanning, and later use those information in order to compromise and gain access over our victim machine, right? So that was the thing that we did yesterday. So just to give brief about that, we performed port scanning on our victims first. Later, we got through port scanning, we were able to get what ports are open, what services are running on the victim machine. Later, we got the accurate operating systems, possible usernames, those kind of information on using enumeration. Later, we used vulnerability scanning to identify known vulnerabilities on our victim computer. So when we performed vulnerability scanning on a victim computer, we were able to fetch and get information like what all the known vulnerabilities our victim was vulnerable to, which helped us to gain. So we use that particular vulnerability in order to gain access on our gain access and take control of our victim computer. So practically speaking, we performed our attack on our Windows 7 target machine. We can typically do the same attack that we did yesterday on the lab mission that I've shared. So you can go to the Hack with BQB's website and you can download that particular Windows 7 image. And whatever we did yesterday, we could typically do the same attack in your own personal lab setup as well. Okay. So obviously for this you would be requiring at least two missions. That is, you would be required to import Kali Linux and Windows 7 missions, where Kali Linux would be attacker machine or a hacker computer, and our Windows 7 would be a victim computer. Yeah. Coming to tools, we used Nmap for the port scanning, and we use the same Nmap for enumeration as well. Later, we used our Nessus for vulnerability scanning. Later, Metasploit for gaining access on our victim computer. Okay. So hope things that we have covered so far, the exploitation part, everything is pretty much clear. Just to summarize, so in the study session, unfortunately, we were able to perform a hack only on a Windows-based mission. Unfortunately, we were not able to perform session, or we were not able to get access on our Unix mission. So we'll just take a first part or the starting part of this today's session on compromising compromising our Unix-based mission. So let us see how that process would work. Whereas the steps and the procedure would be exactly same. That is, you will be searching for the script or the so the exploit script on Metasploit. Once you search, you will read the information. So then you'll use the information provided, and you will compare that with your current scenario. And later you would configure if the scenario, if the current scenario and the exploit information both matches together, then you will import the script and then configure the script according to your details. Later you will you'll go and execute the particular script. So upon execution, if your system is really vulnerable for that particular vulnerability, you should be able to get the system's access, the system's command prompt on your own attacker machine. Yeah, so that's what the overall ideology is. Okay, so the commands, the procedure would always be exactly same for any kind of vulnerability, irrespective of any operating system. The only difference is there will be a different vulnerability code for different missions, and obviously every different vulnerability code will be having a different exploit scripts and a different payload scripts. And at the end of the day, you'll be getting a different view, but at the end of the day, you'll be getting the same as everything. You'll be getting the victim's command access on the attacker mission. Okay. So I've already shared you all the commands that we discussed in yesterday's session. Okay, we'll be using a similar part, but yesterday's session or the victim of yesterday's session was a Windows 7 mission, and the vulnerability was MS17-010. But in this case, in our today's scenario case, it's a Unix-based mission, and the exploit code is we do not have an exact exploit or vulnerability code over here. We know the system's application name, and we know the version, so 3.8.1, right? So the Unreal IRC daemon, which is version of 3.8.1, it contains a backdoor vulnerability on our victim computer. So we can try to use Metasploit to exploit this particular vulnerability. Now, how do we know that we can use Metasploit for exploiting this vulnerability? While going through Nessus, in the Nessus, there was a section called as exploitable with, where we had got an exact idea that this particular daemon, using this particular daemon, we can go and exploit the mission, and you could use Metasploit in order to exploit that particular vulnerability. As simple as that. Okay, so let us go forward and let us start importing the script. Before that, let me connect to my hacker mission. So it's 192.168.43.7. Let me increase the font size. One more thing is I have a bit of cold, so obviously if you may find a bit of disturbance in the voice, sorry for that. Let me. So now I have logged into my hacker computer, and just to give you a hint, my victim computer. Just recall from yesterday's session, my victim's computer that I'm actually hacking here, the IP address is 192.168.43.134, and the vulnerability, that is Unreal IRCD 3.8.1, exists on port number 6667. Okay, this is the vulnerability that we are going to use to compromise the mission. Yeah. So I hope it was pretty much clear, and I hope so. Again, this sounds pretty easier, and it may look like everything is going in a single flow. But unless and until you practice this more efficiently, it would be a bit hard for you when you go through and perform this things. Okay. So what I would recommend is to utilize your free time and set up its own lab on your system and try to perform the same attacks that we're trying. Obviously, you will have you are having the recorded videos. You will have the cheat sheet of all the commands. So I would recommend you guys to practice all those things on your personal computer, because the more you practice, the more efficient and more proficient you will become on these attacks. Okay. So here I'm just discussing you the concepts. Don't just execute this exactly. Don't do like makika maki. Don't do like that. Better understand the process and see what this particular command is doing. Understand the root cause of every attack, and then perform. Because at the end of the day, whatever concept that you are doing, either it could be on Windows machine or it could be on Metasploitable, you're going to be using the same concept on any other computer if you're going to hack or if you're going to do a penetration testing. Okay. So let us go forward and let us start our attack. And as usual, let us my Metasploit is already initialized, so let me start the PostgreSQL database. The commands, the basic commands would be exactly same as I did yesterday, so there would not be any differences. And let me start my console. So this will take a bit of time. Meanwhile, guys, at any point of time, if you have any queries, you can mention the queries in chat, and they answer the queries once the particular topic is being discussed, right? So as just meanwhile it loads, let us discuss about what we're going to discuss apart from this session. So apart from the exploitation of Linux machine, you will be discussing about how to crack passwords, right? So how can you crack Windows passwords or Linux passwords, and similarly how to crack online passwords. We'll discuss about those things. Yeah. So after that, we'll see a few of the network attacks theoretically, and then we'll be discussing about a few basic concepts of web, which will obviously be continued in tomorrow's session. Okay, so let us search for Unreal IRC. Obviously, there's only one script for this because it's just a this vulnerability exists only one. There's a exploit script only for one of this particular version. So hence, there was just a one exploit script in the search. Obviously, as I said, you should never run a script blindly. So it's always better to read the info. So from the info, just identify what is your target, what is your platform, whether you get privilege or not, and so on. So in our current cases, the platform is Unix. Obviously, our target is also Unix. Coming to architecture, we are going to get a command line access. That's perfectly okay. And privilege says that you're going to get a low privilege access, which means we are just going to get we're not going to get a root access. That gives us an opportunity to learn about privilege escalation as well. Okay, so let's see that. So here in this, so if you recall yesterday's session, there that vulnerability was in the core of that particular operating system. So whatever vulnerability we exploited yesterday, that was related to an operating system, right? That's why most of the time any vulnerability that we get due to operating system vulnerability, due to operating system loophole, there you would get a privilege access or administrative access. So, but when you're trying to log in as when you're trying to exploit any application level vulnerability, in that case, most of the time you will not get administrative access. You will get a low privilege access where you have to perform privilege escalation. Okay, so this gives us an opportunity to learn also about privilege escalation. As simple as that. Clear? So that we are clear. So our target platform is Unix, and we're going to get a low privilege access. That's perfectly okay. And the information that it requires is just the IP address of the target and the port number, and it's pretty straightforward. So let us import this. While it's freezed. Let me use, it will import the script. Show options will give me all the options. It's just the same thing that we have discussed yesterday. Our host, basically, it is used to specify the target IP address. Let me go forward. And we have successfully configured the options, the exploit options. It only requires two information, that is our host and our port. Our host is the target IP address, and our port is the port number. If you recall, 134 is the target's IP address, and port number 6667 is the vulnerable port, isn't it? See, 6667. Right? So let us see what are the compatible payloads. And in the compatible payloads, there are various payloads. So here, just like the reverse TCP that we used in Linux, we're going to use a similar one over here. The efficient payload in this case is CMD Unix reverse. That's it. Okay. Much difference, just hit enter. And obviously it will ask you L host and L port, that is attacker machine's IP address and port number. Let us give it as L host. My attacker machine IP address is 192.68.43.7, and I want to get this session on port number 4545. The process is exactly the same thing that we did yesterday. If you recall, we first searched the script, we learned about the script, we imported the script, we saw what all the information that is required, and then we set our host, we set the payloads, and then we gave the attacker machine's IP address and attacker machine's port number, and later we exploited it. So the process would be exactly the same. Okay, so now everything is set. Let me options right away. So the ROS is set, R port is set, L host is set, R port, L port is set. Now everything is ready. Let us just hit exploit and hit enter. And this will connect to my victim computer, and in a few seconds we'll be able to get the access.
Sir, Bharat sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Somebody's asking you to repeat certain steps. Can you just look into the chat?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, I didn't look at it. I'll look at it.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
I'll yeah. Let me background this and let me do this again. See, okay. Let me go from scratch. So, see, always when you go to the Metasploit for exploiting anything over exploitation, the steps would be very simple. So, first, let me conceptualize this first, and then let me put the steps. First, you will start the Metasploit. Start the Metasploit. Right. Second, you will search for the exploit script. Okay. Once you search for the exploit script, you will read information about the exploit scripts displayed in the response. Right. And later you will import the compatible script which matches your vulnerability scenario or your victim's computer. And last one is then and then you will configure or set the required options onto the exploit script. Then you will import the compatible payload and configure or set the required option onto the exploit onto the payload. So we will verify whether all required options are set with the right values, and once everything is verified, then you will execute the exploit script. Okay, this is the conceptual steps. First, we will start the Metasploit. These commands are used to start the Metasploit. Okay, the step one, let me put it this way. Let me use percentage and one to indicate the steps. And then here, let me use this command symbol so that this is usually used as comment in HTML, so I'm going to use this for description. This is step 2 for searching for the exploit script. And this is step 3 where you're reading the information about your exploit script. So in the response, here you're importing the compatible script. Right? So here so this part, options setting, under this part, you are getting the what's that called? You're setting up the required options for the exploit to work. You're configuring the exploit to work. Okay, and here you're importing the payload and configuring the payload until this part.
Hi, Bharat sir. I just want to ask one thing. How can we decide which payload do we have to take for a particular exploit? Because exploit can be decided by searching the information of our exploits. So we
Yes.
get number of exploits and the auxiliaries. But
Mhm.
how should we decide for the payload that which payload do we have to choose for that particular exploit? Are there specific payloads for that, or do we have to learn by exploiting or learn by executing the different exploits?
Yes, basically you need to do both. One thing is, let me get back to this script so that let me show you that how this thing can be done. There are two ways, as you said. One, when you're inside a particular exploit, that time itself use a command called show payloads, which lists you all the
Right.
available payloads of your exploit, which is compatible to your exploit. So what we
Yes.
could do, you could do the same thing, use info and use CMD. You provide the path. So there's one thing you need to do exactly, that is add payload. You're starting and type CMD Unix slash reverse. Sorry, to provide the path of the your payload, which will give you information about this particular payload, right? So you can also use the same info that we use for exploit, even for payload as well. Okay, the only difference is when you use show payloads, it give you the the generic path. So while asking for the information, while searching for the information, what you need to do is you need to add payload along with your command, whatever the path of the payload. So this will give you informations like which platform this payload will work for, and whether it gives you what is the size of the particular payload and what it typically does. Okay, but again, this will give you some generic idea. You will not have a specific idea like a targeted kind of an
Right.
information. So what you could do is you could rely on so again this the second part of the payload identification completely depends upon your practice, right? So what I would suggest for all my students generally is always choose a payload that either, so when you're using any Windows targets, use payload like Windows Twitter / reverse TCP, reverse underscore TCP. This is for 32-bit payload. And similarly, for 64-bit targets, you can use Windows x64 / reverse TCP. When you're using any other, like for Unix, you can use CMD / Unix / reverse. So for few of the Linux systems, you can use Linux / x86 / meta / reverse underscore TCP. And for 64-bit machines, you can use similar kind of fashion, but you need to have a 64 in this section. So whenever you get these payloads mentioned in your kind of an show, when you hit show payloads, when these payloads are being displayed on your console, it's better to use these ones. Why? Because these are pretty much efficient payloads and very commonly used payloads. Apart from this, various other payloads will also work. I'm not saying it does not work, but the thing is, the efficiency that you get on those payloads would be pretty less than this one. So under any conditions, if your exploits perfectly work, this payload will perfectly work. If there's any issue with the network or in the victim computer, in that only in those cases, this payload might not work, except that it does not have any issues in the generic cases. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Is
Thank
it
you.
okay? Commonly used payloads. Okay, perfect. So yes, I hope the steps also pretty much clear. So I'm trying to compare the generic steps along with our commands, right? So as I said, I'm just trying to keep this more generic scenario. The reason is because today I may give you an idea that to hack into Windows 7 machine, use these many commands, right? But tomorrow when you do the actual task, so you do not have any person guiding you which command to do or which command not to do. So a lot of times I've seen people who are almost there in the entrance of an exploit, but due to some minor mistakes, they may fail to exploit it. Why? Because you might not be following the similar, I mean, you may not be following the steps, or you might have done a minor mistake. Either instead of using lhost, you might have used rhost. So what happens here is, see, let me unset my haro. So let's see if I use instead of typing r host. So what happens now is my options r host does not have any value, isn't it? I've unset the value. I've removed the value. So I've seen a lot of people what they do is instead of typing r host, they make a typo. And if I do like this, like say 43.134, so it gives me an echo, echoes me back. That's perfectly right. But when I do show options, the value is not set here. Why? Because obviously you while doing it while in the flow of performing the attack, you might have forgotten it or you might have skipped this step. But without knowing, we just click on exploit and the exploit will not work, and you'll go scratching your head at what did I do wrong, right? So it's always necessary to see all the steps. And as I said, before exploiting it, always verify whether all the required information has been set accurately or not. So in case you have missed any data, obviously your exploit will not work. Okay, so the hint in that part is basically stick with the steps, verify each steps, never be in hurry. So in hacking or in pen testing, patience is the best key and is the best friend basically. The more patience and the more clarity you have on the attack and more understanding you have on the particular vulnerability or attack, that much efficient a professional person can perform. He can be, right? I've still seen people who are having like 5, 10 years of experience, but still, while running an exploit or while running on a specific task, they may fail a couple of times. Just because the concentration and the methodology they follow, they might have some minor mistakes. I'm not saying that they not do not know the concept. They actually know the concept. They know their work, what work they're doing, but they might be following, they might be missing or skipping few of the steps, which will cause them an issue. Like even in my case, so practically speaking, in my case, when I was learning my hacking, so I was just practicing with these many computers. Generally, to sharpen our skills, we use CTF. So I discussed about CTF in the last session, but we were playing CTFs, and the entire day I was just waiting to get a limited shell. And what mistake I actually did was very simple. You will even laugh that why did I use this particular mistake. The thing is, the mission has blocked port 445, 4545, but I'm still trying to get the reverse shell on 45, 445, 45, which means the port I'm specifying is completely closed or it is inaccessible. But from morning to evening, I keep on trying the same port, which means I'm repeating the same mistake that I'm doing from the first step, even to the last step. How can I expect that my attack will work perfectly, isn't it? So you should learn from the mistake that you have already done. So you should analyze what went wrong or what is my current scenario is. So that's the reason enumeration plays a very vital role. Identify which port has the vulnerability and make sure that particular port is specified over here. Okay, the port that is vulnerable is different port, and the port is mentioned on our port. If it's a different port, obviously the attack will not work. Similarly, the information that you have given provided over here, if it is different from your current scenario, obviously it will not work, right? So what I recommend is whenever you get some information, take a notepad or take some other reporting tool or take a pen and paper, note down each and everything, note down what is your IP address, note down what is attacker's IP address, note down what port is vulnerable, and use that, refer that in the list stages. And as you progress, it would be as a part of you so that you no longer require that notes. Okay, hope that's pretty much clear, and hope the steps also pretty much clear. Let me recall. So we will first always start the metasploit. These commands are used to start the metasploit. And then we'll search for the exploit script which is compatible with our vulnerability. You can use that by searching a vulnerability name or a vulnerability code. And obviously you will get a couple of search results. So even if you get a single search result or if you get multiple search results, I would recommend always to go through the exploit details using info, and only then when you verify that the exploit information matches my victim's information, only then go forward. That is, you will have to import the script. You have to see out what all information that is required for the attack to work, which is identify which is mandatory and which is optional. Provide all those information. Next, once you have perfectly given all the information regarding exploit, check which is the compatible payloads for your current exploit. And in that exploit, so either you can go to info and search about the exploits, or you could use the commonly used exploits, commonly used payloads. And once you import the payload, kindly provide your exact IP address, that is your attacker mission's IP address, and the respective port. And before attacking, always make sure that you verify the given information are accurately set up or not. Okay, let me put it this way. I think it's percentage 7, that's step 7. Okay, so let's 8, sorry, my mistake. Okay, so once everything is ready, then after you verify all those details, then you go on exploit it. Okay, so this is the same step that I've done for Windows, and this is exactly the same step that I'll be doing it for Unix as well. So let me do that one by one. Let me answer everything. That's my mistake. So what did I do? I first searched for my vulnerability name. So my service name was Unreal IRC. So this is what we do already. So we make typos and we scold the computers, isn't it? So yes, we got the script. Use info space path of the script to learn about the script. So here it says that the script does not give you administrative access. Here the major thing that we require is which platform does this exploit work for, and do we get administrative access or not? Those two things. Okay, and after that we can import the script. Okay, using use command. Once you import it, then we use show options to see all the options that are very visible. In this case, since I've already set up here, so that's the reason it's giving you value. But in your reality case, when you open it for the first time, obviously you'll have to set the R host, you'll have to import the payload, and after importing the payload, you have to set up the value of L host at L port. Once everything is ready, you will have to verify all the details, whether they have accurate details or not. In this case, 43.134 is my victim's computer's IP address. 6667 is a vulnerable port on the victim system. And the attacker machine, this is my attacker machine IP address, that is Kali Linux IP address. Port number 4545 is the port that I want the connection to happen. Okay, simple and straightforward. So now everything is ready. Let us go and exploit the script. This will go and exploit a particular session and give you the access. So if you recall, if you compare the yesterday's session and today's session, if you recall, the payload that we used in yesterday's session was this one, isn't it? It was CMD, it was Windows x64 Metapreter reverse TCP. So we were using an interpreted command, we were using an interpreted payload called as Metapreter. The advantage of Metapreter is you will be able to like upload and download files, get the password hashes, all those things, isn't it? But the payload that we're using today is not a Metapreter command, but instead we're using a CMD of Unix-based mission. So obviously Unix is not a user-friendly mission when compared to Windows background. So if you learn from scratch just Unix instead of Windows, obviously you will love Windows. We love Unix-based missions, but since we've already been used to Windows, it may look as if Unix missions are pretty complicated. Okay, but trust me, when you get used to it, obviously you'll fall in love with Unix-based missions. The reason why we are talking about Unix here is because the command prompt that is displayed to us is not that or interactive when compared to Metapreter, because here if you see, yesterday's session, the Metapreter was giving us a complete prompt and we were able to see that whatever was visible. But what command prompt here we get is a command shell of Unix, which means it does not echo anything by default, neither it is not a kind of an interactive. I mean, when I say interactive, it's not the way that we expect in command line, that is a Windows command. But this here, the blink or the cursor means that we already have access. The text that defines us, the text that tells us that we have gained control is this one: command shell session to open on attacker machine port and victim machine sockets. But I do not get anything here. That's because we are using a Unix-based payload. We are not using a Metapreter, or we're not using any Windows command prompt, isn't it? That's why it is not interactive. But whatever command you execute will surely execute over here. Example, ls-la is a command which is used to list all the current files. Basically, it's just like a dir in Windows, which lists you the files. Okay. So obviously, you'll have to come across and learn about basic commands of Linux. Okay, so that's up to you. We have to learn a couple of Linux commands and networking information if you want to go into hacking. So, but yes, this is one of the commands that I tried. ls-la, I'm able to see all the files here. As I said yesterday, it's always better to identify what is my victim's mission's information and which privileges I have logged into mission. These two things that you will have to remember. Okay, so hence let us see on which mission you have logged in. We can use just a simple ifconfig. You can see the IP address displayed over here is 192.168.134, which means we have access on our victim machine. Okay, you can use host name to check what is the system name. The name is metasploitable. You can use ID or kind of UMI command to check as which user you have gained access. So from the ID, it gives us that the user ID. It says that I have logged in as a root, and UMI said that I have logged in as a root. So fortunately, yes, we have logged in as a root machine. So this means we have gained a top level access on this victim machine, which means we can do literally anything and everything on this mission. Something similar to like we can get all the files. We can get a list of all the user list in this case. You can use /etc/password, which gives you the list of all the usernames. You can see there's a user called BKB, there's a user called hack with BKB, and you can also see there are users, various amounts of users, right? Huge amount of users. Similarly, you can change the password of a different user. You can do literally anything and everything, right? So you can go to /root and see the root files. Okay, you can go to desktop and see what they have. But unlike your Windows, so what happens in Windows is that we were able to dump the screenshot, isn't it? But this operating system is purely a command line interface operating system. It does not have a desktop. It is a command line operating system. So whatever that we want to do here, we should be able to run. We have to run the commands on it. Like if you want to, create another user. Let's say, let me try to create another user. Add user by name. Let's say BSMIT. I think it's BSMIT, right? So let me check. BSMIT. Okay. Password BNMIT. Let me use that. And password BNMIT. Name. No. It's giving the default values, and let me put Y. It enter. It's asking Y for saving the information. Now it's ready. If I use /etc/password, you can see BNMIT there. What I can do is I can make him sudo user. I can make him a root by using add user BNMIT sudo. This makes him sudo. That means he can now literally log into this machine as, let's say, as an administrator. So we can also use netstat-ano to see what traffic is running, or we can do a very basic port scan. Now from the port scan, we have know that port 22 is open on this machine. Let me show you. Obviously, port 22 is open on this machine. Oh yeah, here it is. Port 22 is open on this machine on all interfaces. So now what we have done is very simple. We have hacked this machine very simply, and since we had root access, we had administrative access. I created another user and made him administrator. So that means what I can do is I've already created a backdoor on this machine. I know there is SH running on this machine. So what I'll do is I will log into this machine as the newly created user in an official channel, which means this is obviously a kind of a backdoor here. See, I can log into BNMIT in an official way on Metasploit. See, I can get an access. Now I can use sudo-s and typing the password. I can literally do anything on this machine. Okay, so this is the way how you can exploit the machine. Obviously, the commands were a bit different. I hope it was pretty straightforward. Let me include all the commands that we tried today. And give you a hint of all the things that we have did. So let me first, as usual, we will use. Let me separate this both. First of all, as usual, if you recall the process would always be start the Metasploit. So the command that we use for starting the Metasploit is this again. Then from Metasploit, the next command is to search for the exploit script that we did by searching the vulnerability this time. And then we used as we search for the information. Let me show you that. We use backdoor and copy this. Okay, so we use exploit / this is the information that we have got. And then we used, so this is the command that we use to read the information. And then we use plus this part to import the data. And then after importing, we used show options to see what all the options that we require. After showing options, we set the R host to our victim IP. And after that, we use show payload to see all the payload that is compatible. And then we set our payload to cmd/unix/reverse, which is an efficient payload for this attack vector. Then we use set lhost space attacker's IP address. Okay. Similarly, we use the same thing to set up the attacker's port number. Okay. And once everything is set, we just verify all the information is right or wrong. After everything, we are able to get the we perform exploit where we able to get the session. But after this, we were not we got the session, but the command line was a basic Linux command. So we use let me represent that by using this symbol. So once we got access, we use ID and UMI to check as which user have logged in. We came to know that we had a root access. So hence what I did is I created another user. Let me put BNIT. So this BNIT would be a backdoor user. IT equal to any backdoor user. Okay, literally anything. And after that, I set all the required things like what is the username, what is the password. So this command will make me into add me into a pseudo like groups. Once that is done, you have efficient to verify that whether you have added sufficiently or not. You can just use /cat space /etc/password, which will list you. This will list all the users in the system. And this one will use to add a user to pseudo group. In other words, make him assign him root permissions. Okay, permissions. So if I have some typos, to check as which user we have got access. Again, it was a very simple and straightforward exploit. There's no much manipulation that we required to do. It was pretty straightforward. The reason I have taken a very simple thing is because for you to understand in a straightforward way, that's the reason I've taken a very simple exploit that we can typically understand how these things work on. Okay, so the concept in a conceptual wise, we have used the same steps as similar to what we did in yesterday session. The only difference is in yesterday session we were aiming a Unix a Windows based target. In today's session we are aiming a Unix based target. So hence obviously the interactiveness would be different for Windows and different for Unix. Okay. So hope so far it's pretty much clear. Let me know if you have any queries, guys, so far. I hope the Unix compromising part is pretty much clear with everyone. Please let me know if you have any queries, guys. Any other queries, guys, with respect to what we discussed so far? About how do you compromise Windows machines? Sorry, Windows machines and Linux machines. So basically, this gives you a hint or idea about how a typical computer can be compromised, whether it could be a Unix or whether it could be a Linux based machine. The concept would always be same. You would do port scanning, you would do vulnerability scanning, and you will perform whatever vulnerability that you get,
So your voice is
you will
breaking, sir.
go and
Bharat, sir.
exploit
Bharat,
that
sir.
victim. As simple and straightforward as that.
Bharat, sir, we are not able to hear you.
Bharat,
Yeah.
you're able to hear? Bharat, your voice is breaking. So can you check your network?
So hope so far it is pretty much clear.
We aren't able to hear you, sir.
But just give us a minute. I'll talk to Bharat and we'll activate. Just give us a
Sure,
minute.
sure. Participants, please stay online. I think there is some issue with the connection there. They'll get it resolved and be back soon. Participants, please stay online. We'll be resuming shortly because there's some issue with the connection. Sridhar sir, is he at it? Sridhar sir?
Yes, ma'am. I think Bharat is restarting his system once and trying to relog in. Just hold. Give us a minute.
Yeah, okay, okay. Sir? Sridhar sir, it's resolved.
Yeah, ma'am, it's resolved. Is joining in few seconds. It's resolved.
Okay.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bharat, you're audible.
Yeah.
You
Just give me a sec.
are
Yeah, let me
a
connect.
different name, is it? I was denying that name because
Yeah,
I don't have that
yeah,
in the
yeah.
list.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Just give me a sec. There was an issue with my laptop. You know why the issue is? I'll troubleshoot it later. I'm connecting for screen sharing. I'm connecting with my laptop from a mission. Just hold on a sec. I'm connecting back with the usual ID. Kindly
Okay.
allow that one.
Okay. Okay.
A sec. Done. Should be okay. Yes, ma'am. I'm joined. Can you add me? Yeah. I think I'm visible. Uh, so, where the present screen? Ma'am, is my screen visible? Can someone can confirm whether my screen is visible or not?
No, sir. No, no.
I think it's loading, probably.
Okay. It's loading now.
Loading. Is it visible now?
Yeah, sir. It's visible now.
Should be seeing a blue screen, right? Sorry,
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let me use my terminal for that. So yeah, okay. So just me again, someone remind way.
So we can't hear you. Bharat sir? Bharat sir, we aren't able to hear you.
Yeah, ma'am. Just hold on, ma'am. Wait.
Yeah.
Is it audible now, ma'am?
No,
Am I
sir.
audible?
Yeah. Fine.
And my screen is visible, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so just to recall that, did we start? Where did the packet loss went? Ma'am, is it did we complete the exploitation or it went in the earlier parts? What was the status, ma'am? Just to recall.
Mm,
Just to recall back. So I was just I mean from my side I was starting to explain about password cracking.
yeah, I think that's where it went, sir.
Okay, that's a little bit. Okay, so so I hope before that, do we have any queries regarding the exploitation, guys? Who going to password cracking from anyone? So sorry for the inconvenience. Obviously, that's the issue was due to my system uh, the behavior. So I hope the Linux exploitation was pretty much clear. I'll obviously share the commands that I've used at the end of the session to ma'am, and he'll post it back again to you guys, just like we did yesterday. No queries. So let's go forward and let's work on password cracking. Okay. So yes, so what is password cracking then? So obviously the file I'm sharing is different from the one I was sharing from that case. So obviously it's a different laptop. So that's the issue. We'll be able to see a different screen here. Okay. So yes, let me start with okay. Okay. So far we discussed about how do you compromise a machine, whether it is a Windows or Linux, right? So now let us see how do you what like we saw about when you find a remote code execution vulnerability. We saw how can you go and kind of exploit this and gain access, right? So oppose it. So basically, what we'll learn now is we'll see how to crack the system's password. That is, so gaining the system's access through our through a remote code execution vulnerability was one part of exploitation. But so sometimes you may not find a remote code execution in your victim system. Okay, in such cases, in such type of cases, when you do not find a remote code execution on a remote on a system or on your victim computer, in such cases there are also a couple of other ways. Or in case if you found somehow the password hashes of a system, even in such cases you can typically use. Oh, sorry. Sorry. So you can typically use like this password cracking. This is a hold on a sec. Let me share my screen sharing again. So I've got back my other computer. So in case it's uh, blocking back. Okay. So I hope the screen is changed for everyone. Could you confirm that? Is my screen changed?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Just give me a second. I'll hop on to that particular computer back again. Am I audible to everyone? Guys, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am? Yeah, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the confirmation. Yes, let's get back to password cracking. So, the exploiting a machine through a remote code execution is just one way of compromising a machine. So, but along with just exploiting via remote, there are also possible cases where you will have to crack system's password. Now, why do you, when you have a remote code access on the victim machine, why do you require to crack someone's password? Let me give you a few hints, few user cases where you will be required to crack passwords. So when you compromise a mission, not always you may get an administrative access. So there would be cases where you will need to perform privilege escalation. In such cases, sometimes in the process of privilege escalation, you may come across scenarios like through some other enumeration technique, you may get into the access of the system's password, or you may get some hashes, or while your enumeration, sometimes instead of getting your credentials, instead of getting the usernames, you may sometimes get hashes. Now let us understand what is hashes, and to go more, if we go more detailed about password cracking. So let us first understand how typical passwords will work in a very simple example. Okay, so I'll come to the same part of why we need to crack passwords. But before going into that passwords, let us really understand few basics about passwords. Okay, obviously everyone would have used passwords, irrespective whether it could be online or offline or whatever different cases you are, even in mobile or all those things. But let us understand how these passwords work. Okay, so this password, so before going to exactly password, there's one more very basic and a core concept that you need to understand is hashes. So basically, as we discussed in the previous day about cryptography, I mean, I was telling about cryptography is a domain where you handle about encryption, decryption. I'll come across that how to use those things practically as well after the session. But yes, under cryptography, we come to a concept called hashes. Now, what is this hash? Hash or hashes is? Hashing or hashes are basically a kind of an algorithm which is used to generate a unique value for a unique input. Okay, which means that whenever I want to generate a value of a particular input and I want to store it on my system so that any other person should not be able to see it, in such cases, I'll be using hashing. So let me put it this way. So hashing is an algorithm which is used to generate a unique value for some input. Clear? And there are two characteristics in hashes. That is, hashes are one-way algorithm, which means you can translate data, or you can convert or you can generate a hash value for your data, but you cannot do the vice versa. So which means if you have the hash value, you cannot get back the hashes. So it's obviously a one-way algorithm. Okay, so it is almost similar to the wood and the hash, because from the wood you can create a hash, but from the hash you cannot get back the wood again, isn't it? Something similar to that. That's one thing. Second thing, the second characteristics about hashes is that hashes are a unique. So for every unique file or text, a unique value of hash is generated, no matter whatever computer you use or whatever location you are and whatever tool you use, irrespective of whatever computer, whatever location, whatever device or whatever tool you use, as long as you have the same input, the hash value will be exactly same. Okay, which means let me give you a practical example. Let's say I want to generate hash, let's say I'm generating a hash, generate MD5 hash. I'll do it out. So obviously you can generate hash across online, offline tools. There's no limitation on that. So let me use some 5 different websites to generate hash. Okay, so now I'll come across what is the practical use of hash a bit later, but let us understand what hash is and details about it. So later let me come across that. Just for our easy ease, let me use as notes. And let me generate hash. So I'm going to be generating hash for a word called PNMIT. Okay, simple as that. We use generate here. I'm using the same word. I'm using a different tool. All online tools. I'm just using different tools. Okay. So if you observe, I'm using 4 different tools. Okay. The input is BNMIT, all in caps. You see the hash value from this website is this. So the same hash value from this website is this again, and hash value from this particular website is this. Hash value from this particular website is this. We observe so we have used 4 different websites, right? And if you want, we can also do the same thing with a different browser. But still, whatever tool you're using, wherever they are located, as long as you're using the same word, the hash value will be same. Okay, that is what the second statement states. Okay, this particular statement. So I hope it's pretty much clear so far about hashes. So hash, first of all, hash is an algorithm which is used to generate a unique value for unique input. And hashes has 2 categories. One is hashes are always unique way algorithm. So it's a one-way algorithm, which means you can generate a text into hash, but you cannot take the hash into text because this text does not make any sense to you, isn't it? Right? So, and second category is characteristics is that for every unique file, so as long as you're using the same hashing algorithm and you're using the same input, irrespective of whatever computer you use, whichever location you are, whichever tool you use, at the end of the day, you will be generating the same hash value for same text. Okay, so these are two characteristics why hashes are widely used in passwords, which means in your computer, you will never store your passwords, at least in your system's passwords. Those passwords will never be stored in plain text. Why? So let's understand the risk. Why passwords are not stored in plain text. If you recall, so each time when you log into your system, you'll be logging by typing password, isn't it? But each time you try to log into the same password, obviously the password should be stored in a system, isn't it? It should be stored in a system somewhere. Now, what if I have compromised the system? So if you recall our previous two sessions, we have successfully gained access on our both Windows 7 machine as well as our Unix machine. In both the cases, we were root or we were administrator. So in this case, obviously, since we are administrator, we'll be able to steal those passwords, isn't it? So the risk here is if your password is stored in plain text, in that case, the person who compromises your system will be able to get your passwords, right? That's a even more riskier thing, isn't it? That will be a permanent backdoor into your system, right? So in order to prevent that, your passwords are never stored in plain text. Instead, your passwords are stored in hashed way, which means the passwords would, whatever keyword you type, the passwords would not be in the plain text. It would be hashed and they would be kept. Now, why they were going to be hashed? Because hashes does not have a reverse process. So if you take encoding or encryptions, hashes can be encoded. So the data can be encoded. It can be decoded as well. So if you encrypt data, it can be decrypted as well. But when you hash a particular data, it can never be dehashed. There's no concept called dehashing where you can reverse the hash value, isn't it? So that's the reason why always in any category or any concept, the passwords are never stored in plain text. Instead, they are stored on hash value. Now, when you come across websites, in websites, we say that hashes, the password should always be stored in hashed value in a security, in kind of a security algorithms or in specification and in compliances as well. We always recommend to store passwords in hash, but still certain website may use password in plain text. That would be a critical issue or critical vulnerability if they're storing the passwords in plain text. Clear? Now you understood about what is the relativity between hashing or hashes and passwords. So let us clearly understand how this password comparison works. To give you a simple example, I'm just using a very I'm just using a very basic example of passwords. It's a very basic part. So obviously, I hope it would be pretty straightforward. There's not much complicated here. Let me explain it in a simple way. So I hope everyone would have installed operating system. In case if you have not installed operating system, at least you have seen how an operating system is installed. If you go back to the moment when an operating system is installed, okay, so that time at the end of the installation procedure, at the end you would be getting the console which asks you for creating a username and a password, isn't it? It asks you to create a user. In that process, what do? You give a username and you give a password. But what technically happens in the case? What happens is that whatever password you have typed in plain text, that password will be converted into a hash and it will be stored in your system. This is what happens in every computer. In every computer, whatever password you type while creating a profile, that the password will be converted into a hash, and that hash will be stored on your particular system. Okay. In Windows, it is stored into SAM file. In Unix-based machine, it is stored under shadow file. But at the end of the day, in both the cases, it is stored on some critical location. As simple and straightforward it is. Clear? So let me again recall, during the installation of a system, the password that you type for creating a profile, the password would be, whatever you type in plain text, would be converted into a hash and would be stored in some critical or some secured location of a system. Yeah, which only administrators has access to. Clear? Now, what happens when you log into your computer, right? So, in logging into the computer, the process goes in this way. That is, almost all password comparison works in a similar way. Is that whatever you during login procedure, the moment when you type the password, so the password would be the text that you type would be converted to a hash. So whatever you type, irrespective of whatever you type, that data would be converted into a hash, and the newly generated hash will be compared with the existing hash. And if and only if both the hashes match together, only then you'll be able to get the access. Or else you do not get the access. As simple as that. Clear? Any queries regarding how passwords gets how do you get the passwords? How passwords work? So far, guys, any queries? Okay, that's great. So let's go forward. We just understood how the typical passwords are stored on a system and how the comparison of passwords work. Okay, but if you recall, I also said that passwords are pretty like the passwords are stored in hashes, which means you cannot reverse it back. And I also said that it's stored in some critical location, which means it's almost to an extent it may sound like it's an impossible case in order to perform this password cracking. But trust me, this password can be cracked in various cases. Okay, so let's see that. Let me show you why and how this password cracking can be performed. Okay, first things, password cracking can be differentiated into two parts. That is offline password cracking and online password cracking. So offline password cracking is where you're trying to crack your system's password, like a Windows password or Linux password. Okay, that is called offline password cracking because you're trying to crack the hashes. Something called online password cracking, where you try to crack a website's password, something like Facebook or Google or Gmail, those kind of passwords. Okay, so those are the two different cases of password cracking. Clear? So now let's try to see how Windows password can be cracked and how Linux passwords can be cracked. Okay, in both the cases, and to an extent, I'll also show you how websites passwords can be cracked by using a very simple website. Clear? Now let's understand how password cracking methodology will work. Okay, so to cracking methodology, what happens in hashes is that if you recall, we had I just showed you about two characteristics of hashes, isn't it? That is, hashes have two characteristics. That is, one is the passwords, the hashes are irreversible. Second thing, as long as the data or the input is unique, irrespective of wherever you generate the hash value will be same, right? Isn't it? So using this, the hackers, what they do is they'll create a table. In the table, what they do is they'll try to populate a list of possible passwords. As you can see, this is a table which has 3 columns. The first hacker will download or will create like a kind of a table on which he will populate a list of possible passwords. So he will create a list of possible passwords. And after creating a list of possible passwords, which is known as word list, what he'll do is he will generate he will create a hash value of the list of possible passwords. So in this case, let's say my password is, I do not know what my password is, but let's say I have somehow got the password hash. I'll also show you how to get this password hash. Okay, but I somehow got my password hash, so which means I somehow tricked my victim, and what I did is I was able to get into the particular folder and I stole the hash. Okay, now I have, by somehow method, either through enumeration or by compromising the database or through some other place, I got the hashes. But how do you crack that hash? Very simple. What hacker will do is he will create a list of possible password first, And then in the second column of that particular table, he will generate the hash value of that particular keyword, which means this first content is basically a hash value of admin. Second data is the hash value of BQB. Third data is basically a hash value of Windows 7. And fourth data is basically a hash value of Canada. And fifth value is basically a hash value of exploits. Yeah. So what I'll do next is, since now I have a table which has a list of possible passwords and a list where it resembles the hash value of the concerned password. Right. So what I'll do is I'll compare the newly generated hash with an existing hash. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm doing the same process which happens in a system while logging in. So whatever comparison your system does, I'm exactly doing the same comparison, but I'm repeatedly doing that. Okay, so I have a table which I have created various hashes which is generated from known passwords. So what I'll do next is I'll compare my existing hash with the newly generated hash. So according to the second scenario, second characteristic, that is for every, irrespective of whichever tool or whichever location you generate the hash, as long as the input of the hashing algorithm is same, the hash value will be same. Which means, so if both hash matches together, if when two hash is equal, that means the keyword which was used to generate the hash would be same. So this is the concept which is used for cracking hashes, and this is the only way how you can crack the hash. Theoretically, I mean, practically speaking, if you have a very complicated, very fast computer, like a quantum computer, we can try to crack few hashes depending upon your password length and characters used. But unless until you use a wordless method, you can typically not crack any passwords. So what happens in wordless method? What you'll do is you will provide a list of possible password, and if or only if the password, if the accurate password is a part of your word list, if the password exists in your word list, in that case, the word list it generates will contain the hash equals to the captured hash, and whichever hash is matched with your current hash, the resembling keyword would be your password. Okay, so in practical world, this happens in a fraction of a second. So all you need to do is you need to get the hash and give the word list. It will automatically crack the password hash. As simple and straightforward it is. Clear, guys? Hope so far it's pretty much clear. And if you have any queries regarding the concept of password cracking and the methodology, please let me know in the chat box. Let me change this so that I can. Okay. Any queries, guys, regarding how passwords work or password cracking methodology? Now let's come across how practically can you crack passwords. To crack passwords, to crack system passwords, you need to first dump the password hash. You need to get the password hash. And once you dump the password hash, you need to copy the hash to the attacker machine. And once you copy the password hash into the attacker machine, then you can load it towards any password cracking tool that will crack your password. It's a pretty simple and straightforward process. So the steps are very simple. Dump the password hash, copy it to attacker machine, and then run it using a tool that will do all the job for you. As simple and straightforward it is. Clear, guys? Okay, so let us see what are the hurdles that you face while cracking the password hash. Okay, so irrespective of both Windows and Linux, as I said, the password hash files can only be accessible by your administrator. So in Windows, the file is located under C:/Windows/system32/config/SAM. Okay, so this is where your hash located. In Unix-based machines, your passwords are stored under /etc/shadow. So in both the cases, this file can only be accessed by a root user. Okay, so And that is the major hurdle. So in order to in order to gain your password hash, you need to gain an access as an administrator. Okay, that's the limitation or dependency in this case. Now, practically speaking, in this dependency, how can you typically crack a password? So you cannot crack a password of a system unless until you have some sort of an access on this machine. So there would be various cases where there are different cases where so you are doing privilege escalation, and so since assume that you are already compromised the machine and you want to do privilege escalation. In such cases, you are able to partially run some command as administrator. In such cases, you can use this and dump the hash. That is one way. Second scenario is you have compromised the machine. You want to create a backdoor. So what you use is since you're administrator, you can dump the hash, crack the password, and use the password for yourself. That is the second case. Third case, you have, through SQL injection or some other database attack, you have compromised the database, and the content of the database, it contains your credentials, your password hashes. In such cases, you can use password cracking. In third case, the fourth case is that you have got a limited administrative access, or you have got a one time you are able to access your computer as administrator. In such cases, you can dump the password hash. So only in this the above mentioned scenarios, you will be able to crack the passwords, offline passwords. Okay, either you are in the process of password, you are in the process of privilege registration. In that case, if you're somehow able to get the password hash, you can get that. Or in second case, if you've already compromised the machine, you already have administrative access, so you can use this passwords, cracked passwords as backdoor. Third case, you have hacked the database online, and through that so that they are leaking you some credentials, the hashes. So you can use those hacked or compromised hashes to crack the passwords. Or else you have got one-time administrative access. So in that case, you can run this particular tool and gain the password hash. Yeah. So these are the different scenarios using which you can in the scenarios where you can dump and crack the password hash. Okay. So hope so far it is pretty much clear, guys. At any point of time, if you have any queries, please mention the question in the chat box. Any queries, guys, so far? So we will be going directly to the password cracking. We'll see how passwords can be cracked. Okay, that's great. So there's no password, there's no queries. So let's go forward and let's try to crack first. Let us see how Windows password can be cracked, and then let's go for Linux passwords. The process is always same. Okay, so understand that process that in Windows you would run the password hash. The password hash in Windows is not the file which contains a password is not a text file. So hence you will be requiring a tool to dump the hash. Okay, that's the first step. Second step, you need to copy the password hash into the attacker machine, and then you have to run a tool to crack your password hash. Pretty straightforward as that. Next is your Unix based machine. So we have a similar step for Unix. Let me discuss about Unix based machines after cracking out a Windows machine. So for this experiment purpose, I'm going to be using my Windows 7 machine, which I typically used for my previous attack. Let me forgot to add my network. My mistake. Oh, that's okay. Let me see if I have I'm pingable. I wonder why this is my system. Okay, system is not pingable. Okay, that's no problem. Let me try it. 43.7. Yeah, that's another issue with the computer. No problem. So yes, let it power up. Let me connect it a bit later. Let me download all the prerequisite software before downloading this particular thing. Okay. So this, as I said, these files cannot be directly accessed. The text files cannot be directly accessed. So hence you will be requiring a tool to dump these hashes. The tool is called pwdump. Let us first download that particular tool. Okay. So obviously, as I said, the password hashes cannot be directly copy it because it's not a text file. So let's not to dump the password hashes. Make sure you just go to Google and just type download pwdump7. Go to the very first search result. View the tools and click on download. This will download you the file. So let me also add this particular URL in the text file. So this pwdump7 link or download link. Okay, and also let me put also the presentation link so that you can get this. Okay. To understand the flow, we can also get back to this. Okay. Okay, so I've downloaded this file. It is basically a zip file. So most of your antivirus tools, you can see it says removed. That's because most of your antiviruses will think this particular tool as a malware. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to make sure you download it and go to downloads and say this file. You can download it from a different file or from a Linux-based machine. Okay, which does not have any kind of an antivirus in it. Or what you can do is you can go and you can exclude this particular link on your antivirus. Okay, so that it will add up an exception in your case. Okay, but make sure you would require this tool for this attack. So make sure you can download it and access this particular file. Okay, should be connected now. Yes, connected. Perfect. Let me start my Windows machine. So in my current case, I've already downloaded this file, and let me just start my Windows machine. Just give me a sec. It is powering up. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dump the Windows passwords. Okay. First step. I think I have here. So steps would be first download pwdump and extract it on victim's computer. Okay, and then run pwdump as administrator and export the password hashes to a text file. Third is copy the hash file to attacker. Run the hash file through John. John is basically a tool to get the passwords. Okay. On basically using default word list. Now, what is word list? So word list is basically a list of possible passwords. Okay, which is used to crack your passwords. Now, the only limitation for password cracking is that your passwords can only be cracked if and only if the word list that you're using contains your password. Because as I said, there is no reverse process in hashes, isn't it? Your hashes does not have any reverse process. It's basically a one-way algorithm, which means the only way that you can crack the password hashes is that you will be requiring a word list so that you can generate a list of possible hashes. And the only way your hash will match with the existing hash is when the password is exactly present over there. So what you can do is there are two ways. You can use the word list that is available online, like you can use this one, havebeanpawned.com. This has like already compromised passwords. in various hashing algorithm. You can download here. You can download it from torrent or download it from torrent or client. It's a huge list. So this contains most commonly used passwords and is updated as of June 2020. Okay, you can use such a very commonly used password hashes, or you need to do information gathering about that particular victim. You need to go through his social networking, what his likes and what are his likes and dislikes, what are the words he may commonly use in his passwords, and you need to build that particular word list. Okay, as simple as that. So let me again recall our text file. So yes, our job is to first download a PWDump and extract it on victim machine. Second, run PWDump as an administrator and export the password hashes to a text file. Okay, and then copy the hash to your attacker machine. Okay, and then run it through a John using a default word list to get the password. Okay, as simple as that. Let me run it. So in this case, I've already downloaded the PWDump 7 folder, and currently it is located in my shared drive. You can see PWDump 7. Copy it. I'll save it in my C drive. I've already saved it over. Let me remove all the existing hashes. Okay, so here I've already saved it. Make sure when you save it in your local drive, it would contain 3 files: executable, a text file which contains instructions, a DLL file which will do the actual job. Okay, so make sure you run it on C, you paste it on C drive so it's easy for you to access it. Okay, so let's go forward. Let me open up command prompt. So one of the common ways of opening command prompt is we use Windows run and CMD. You can run this tool. So PWDump is purely a command line interface tool. To navigate we can use the CD space PWDump 7, and over here you can just go and run this. But if you run this in a normal command prompt, you will obviously get this error saying that you have an error reading the file system. Why? Because as I said, SAM file can only be accessed as an administrator. So if you open a command prompt as a normal user, it will not be able to dump the hash. Okay. So what you need to do is you need to click on start, search for CMD, right click, and then click on run as administrator to run the. So and then from the USC, click on yes, so that you can get the administrative console. And if you observe here, it is clearly says you that it is administrator. Okay, from here, the very basic commands, use cd / all those things, move to PWDump 7, and when you do when you run this particular folder files, PWDump 7, hit enter, it will show you the password hashes. Okay, so currently this victim machine has practically 2 users, Windows 7 and BQB.
The second half, ma'am, yes.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Starting from monoalphabetic cycle, ma'am.
I think someone is unmuting session. So kindly unmute if you're not asking for any queries. So
we only went for this Caesar cipher in the first section. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go forward. And yes, as I said, when you can use PWDump 7.exe from the hash. So when you get this hashes, what it means is that let me so the first column, you can see the data are separated by using colons. So the differences. So the hashes will give you the username, user ID, password hashes, and the character which is used to separate those information is basically the colons. Colon acts as a separator over here, right? So the first column tells you that it's the administrator. It gives you the username. The second element, that is from second colon to third colon, sorry, from first colon to second colon, is your user ID. The information that is displayed from third colon to fourth colon, it is basically system's hash, which is not required for hashing for our password cracking, but sometimes you may get some hashes over here as well. Okay, but obviously it's not required for us. Next is basically your the actual hash. So the actual hash of the particular user is visible from third colon to fourth colon. Okay, the first parameter is basically give you the username, and the last parameter will give you your password hash. So in this case, the administrator password hash is 31D blah blah blah, and the password hash of BQB user is F568 and so on. Okay, now just by viewing the hash, you cannot do anything else. So let us export it into a text file so that you can move it to the hacker machine. Okay, how do I do that? Pretty simple. Use the same pwm7 command. Use the redirection symbol. Basically, the greater than symbol is also called as redirection, which is used to save or it is used to save the content or the output of a particular command into a particular text file or any file. Due to redirecting the output of one command to an input of a different command. Simple and straightforward. So here you can use this command pwm7.exe to copy this file to export that hash into a text file. So now if I go to the pwm7 folder, I can see there's a hash file over there. If I double click, I get the same data. You can see the first column says the user ID, the system hash, okay, and your the actual hash. Similarly, you will have the same thing for all the users. So in this case, the administrator, guest, and home group user are system default users. They contain default passwords, that is emptiness, they contain empty password. And Windows 7 user and BQB are the actual users, and they will contain its own passwords. Okay. So now we have successfully dumped the password hash. Now the next step is to move this file to a victim. So what I'll do is, now I have enabled the share drive. That means I can copy in files directly from my Windows to Linux. So here you can use email or thumb drive, whatever file sharing mechanism to copy the files. Okay, it's up to you, whatever mechanism you can try, whatever you want. I'll copy this. Go to share drive. Let me create a simple folder over here, like a hash. And like this, I'll copy paste my hash. Clear? As simple and straightforward it is. Okay, so here I have dumped the pwm and extracted it. I have run the pwm7 as administrator and I've exported the password hash. The next job is copy the hash file to the attacker. It's already copied to the attacker machine. Now I have to import this file into Linux and I need to run it. As simple and straightforward it is. Clear? Let me open up putty and let me start cracking. 7 appearance is 18, and here we go. I think I have not enabled SSH. My mistake. I have not enabled SSH in my victim computer, in my attacker computer. Let me enable it. It should open and the service SSH restart. So it's done. Let me retry it again. Okay, let me retry it today. 268.43.7 and appearance again 18. And here we go. It should be available, and here it is. Okay, just to give a hint, the files that I've shared is located under. Let me navigate to the folder where I've downloaded this. Shared probably. Okay. So you can see all the folders that I've created. The folder that I've created from my Windows machine. Let me get inside. And you can see there's a file that that we have got from my Windows machine, right? If you compare, it's exactly the same file. Isn't it? Such a mistake. You're right. Administrator, guest, and home group user in BQB, and even the hashes end up in the same way. The Windows password, sorry, the BQB password ends up with 29 something. So yes, 3C29, and the Windows 7 password ends up with D311, right? So now we have successfully copied the password hash into victim machine. Now the only job for us to run is just type a John and run this particular hash file. That's it. Okay. So what John will do is here we are not providing any password hash, and that's because okay, this file is not importable in John. Let me make it importable in John. That is, we need to add this text file. To remove this text one, let me do the same thing over here. This does not have password hash. Let me remove this out. Similarly, let me remove this password hash. So what happens in John is John has its own format. So obviously, you will have to remove the text that is displayed as no password. In case if it displays any hash value over there, you can use that one as it is. But if it says no password, kindly remove the text which says is no password. But make sure you do not delete out the keyword that is that hashes that it shows. Let me confirm that once again. Hash starts with F56A. Perfect. Let me run it back again. This time it will start cracking passwords. It should take a while. Okay. The passwords that I've used here is basically Windows 7 and BQB, which is the password, the actual password for Windows 7 is Windows 7 itself, and the password of BQB is BQB itself. Using the same username, password is exactly the same thing. So this will take some amount of time. Since I'm using a default word list, as you see, run the hash file through John using default word list. Okay. So I'm using a default word list to crack the hashes. Okay, so this will take some amount of time. So let me make it pretty. Let us wait for a second. Let's see if it is going to crack in a minute or not. So if it does not, if it takes them more than 10 seconds, let me try it using our own custom word list. So basically, what it is doing is it has its own kind of an kind of a like a word list. So John has its own default word list. So we are going to use those default word list to crack here. So you can also mention your own word list. Okay, so let's see that in a while. If it does not crack in the that part, let me use it. Let me use my own word list. Okay, so let's wait for a while, and if it's not cracking, that's no great. So it's not cracking. Let me create my own word list. As I said, word list is nothing but a list of possible passwords. Let me put my passwords here. But hello world. So to keep things simple, let me just keep 4 words. Observe Windows 7 is a password and BKB is password. As is specified, if and only if your password is if and only if your word list contains your password, only then the passwords can be cracked, or else the password will not be cracked. Right. So I think the file got church. Use this one. Let me make it compatible with John again. Next sec. It's awkward. It should crack the password. Let me see. Okay, let's try this. Different format equal to MD4. I think MD4. And nope, it did not crack it. Let me try with 60 and oops, that's awkward. See me password cracked. Okay, that's awkward. Let me see. Okay. Just give me a sec. Let me use my MSF console to download this. The hashing format is a bit different when it comes to Unix. When it comes to John, there are a bit of differences in the hashing format. So let me give you that. Meanwhile, let me also try the different format. So sometimes in John, you will require to specify the hashing algorithm for it to work. Which hashing algorithm they are using? You need to provide those hashing algorithm. Yeah. So let me dump the password hash in the official way. That is through our what's that Metasploit. So dumping the password hash from pwdump was one method. You can also dump it from your what to say from Metasploit as well. Let me simply directly download it from here. I'm going to use the same exploit that we did yesterday. I'm going to just do it a bit faster because you already seen all the steps. Everything is ready, and let me show you dumping the password hash from the Windows mission, the Linux missions. Let me open up another putty instance in case. Okay, let me open up the password hash in a different case, and here we have got access. Perfect. Okay, so we can use a command called sorry, my mistake. Let me download it. The command called hash dump in your ouch. That's awkward. I'm going to get this thing. Okay, let me try this again. Let me try L-port 45. I don't know why it's not working today. It worked basically. Ouch, that is due to some other issue in my system. Okay. Give me a sec. I think my system got, that's the reason. Okay, my victim system got restarted. That's the reason why it's giving me this error. So there are always two ways to dump the hashes. One is either by running the dump on the victim machine, or you can what you do is you can run hash dump in your metafilter. So whenever you got a metafilter access, you can do that one as well. You can command on metafilter as well. So you can also do this one as well on metafilter access. I'm trying to do that one. So because the hashing format is not compatible with John, so that's the reason I'm able to get this issue. Let me try to hack again. Try to exploit back. This time I should be able to dump hashes. It should be possible in a sec. And I've got the access. Run hash dump. So let me check as which user I've logged in. Why is this machine is giving me issues? That's awkward. Okay, so that's awkward here. Let me try to do the same thing with this one, hashes. Just give a sec. Let me try to do it. Third, and the folder was hash. Let me try to edit this. Or else we'll do one thing. Let's see about Windows Linux-based password cracking. So there's a bit issue with my Windows system. Let's come to that part a bit later. We'll go with Linux-based password cracking, and then we'll come back to Windows once the system issue get resolves. Okay. But okay, you see the issue. Okay, but let me first once again clarify the methodology. So there's a bit of issue with my target Windows machine. So it will take some time to get resolved. Meanwhile, we'll see about cracking out Linux passwords. That once that is a bit resolved, we'll switch back to Windows password cracking so that we can get an idea on this. Clear? So let it run in the background in the meanwhile. Okay. Yes, someone has any queries to resolve? Okay, so there are two queries. Let me answer the queries. So first query is how exactly does a password cracker work? So as simple as that. So I was just explaining this part, right? So we give a word list. So if you remember, John was using its default word list earlier, and later we discussed about I provided my own word list, which was unfortunately it didn't work, right? So your this so whatever word list you provide to password cracking tool, the tool internally will create a hash value of the given word list. Okay, and after that it will automatically compare, and it will start to compare the given hash with the given hash with your pass, so given hash with your the newly generated hash. When it keeps on generating when it starts comparing the newly generated hash with the existing hash, whichever hash matches the existing hash, that will start that would be the concerned password. So in this case, as you can see, my password hash that I've captured in this case is basically starts from DAD blah blah blah, right? So this hash, when you compare that with the newly existing hash over here, so here I have created a word list of 5 characters, and on the resembling hashes are also listed over here, right? So from here I can clearly make down that the newly generated hash, so one of the newly generated hash is matching my captured hash. Okay, so hence what I'll do is from the table I'll recall which hash is the which hash is matching that, and what was the keyword that was used for that particular hash. And then at the end of the day, so the hash which is matching my idea would be considered as a password. Okay, so basically that's what the algorithm, this is what the methodology that is used by your for any kind of a hash cracking. Clear? So pretty much clear. Another query coming to how to give a customized word list for a cracker. So to create a customized word list, so what you need to do is you need to provide you need to write a own text file. So your word list is nothing but a simple text file. As you can see, I used a nano text editor, and I created a word list, and I used that particular word list, isn't it? So you can typically create your own word list by mentioning your passwords in the text in the word list. That is one way you can do it, or else in Kali itself there are huge amount of word lists. So that in Kali, if you go under sorry. So yes, let me show you the path over here. Okay, that's running now. Okay, so we go across ls/user ls/user/share/word list. So you can find there are different levels or different files that there are various word lists in your calendar itself. Okay, so then you can use this one, or else you can build your own word list by setting up by adding up by creating a text file which includes all your data, all the required passwords. Okay, as simple as that. Okay, so hope both the queries are pretty much clear. Please let me know if you have any queries, guys. In that case, any queries? Yeah, let's go forward. So I'll resume back with the Windows password cracking as soon as my systems get resolved. Issues with the system get resolved. Meanwhile, let me discuss about Linux-based password cracking. So the only difference between a Linux-based password cracking and a Windows password cracking is that in Windows your password is stored as it is, but in Linux it comes across a couple of other parameters. So hence, in order to crack a Linux password, you will have to perform few more steps ahead on it. That is, so in order to crack passwords, you will be requiring two different files in Linux. That is, first of all, you need to copy both shadow file, which actually contains your password hash. And second thing, you need to copy the file which is called as PASSWD or password file, which actually contains your usernames or possible users in the system. Okay, so then we need to copy both password file and shadow file locally. And once we capture both a password file and shadow file both in a system, okay, after that we can run that particular. We have to combine both the tools, okay, and then we have to combine both the files and then run our password cracker over that particular system. Yeah. So let us do that practically. Let me enable my putty. So for this case, I'm using my Kali Linux itself as attacker machine and itself as a victim machine. The process would be exactly same. You will be dumping the hash, moving the file into the attacker machine, and running password cracker on that. Simple and straightforward it is. Okay, so let me move my case. So it is loading. It's laggy a bit today. System. Here I've got. So let me create another folder just for temporary purpose. I do not mess with system folders. Okay. Ouch, I'm already there in this folder. The system is pretty much laggy a bit. Just give me a sec. Let me open up another virtual lab. Just give me a sec. I'm just opening up another virtual lab on which I have this simulation already running. Just give me a sec. Let me open it. So you can typically do the same attack on your own personal lab, but since there are bit issues in my personal lab, you can use. I'm just demonstrating the same attack on your own on a different kind of a lab environment, which I personally own it. So let me show that. Just give me a sec. Let me host that on a screen. Okay, just a sec. Okay, so here I go. The screen sharing again, and here it is. Okay. So let's show you. So this will here I'll be showing you both the Windows and Linux password cracking in a different way, in a more efficient way. So the tools that you require in this particular scenario would be for Windows cracking. You'll be requiring tools like PWM obviously, and to dump hashes. And to crack passwords, you can use OPH crack. So I'm just coming out of John because John has a few compatibility issues. I'm coming out of that. Coming to Linux, you can typically use your it's a very big file. For dump the hashes, you can, since the hash files are text file, you can just copy the hash file. And obviously to crack passwords, you can typically crack passwords tool like John. As simple as what it is. Okay. So yes, so to download OPH crack, again you can go back to. So I've already given you the link where you can download the PWM file. So let me give you OPH crack downloading file. So you can go to this particular URL. Okay. As I said, OPH crack, you need to download your word list as well. So you can just go to your download over here and click on download here. This straightforward. And you can also download the compatible word list here. So in terms of OPH crack, the word list are always called as tables. So you can download here. It's a pretty big one. Obviously, it is in GBs. So you can just download it from here, 500 MB, 600 MB folders. and it can perform this overall attack. Okay, so let me start the lab. So here this lab is a pretty tricky lab. So it's a virtual lab which I'm using for a different purpose. So yes, you can pretty much do the same thing on your own personal computer. There's not much difference on it, as you can use the same thing with Windows 10 and kernel combination. But since there was a bit of issues in my side, let me show you that same examples on a different tool. Okay, so here I'm using Windows 8 Windows 8 computer. Okay, as a part of victim and attacker. So let me show you how about using the victim Windows machine itself as a hacker. So we can go to password, click on crack here, admin. Yes, it is. So obviously the pwdum file is over here. So let me do the initial start. That is using pwdum to copy the files. We copy both pwdum folder and OPH crack into C drive. It's copied. Just doing the same steps from scratch again, and open up my command prompt as administrator. It's still laggy. Just bear with that. As I copied, let me open up my command prompt and type cmd. Oops, no mistake. cmd, and then right click and click on run as administrator. Click on yes. So this is the same step that we did on my Windows system. I go to pwdum folder, enter, and here it is. Right. So again, I will do the same thing. pwdum 7 space hash.txt. Straightforward it is, and the passwords are stored in the text file. So obviously there are different set of users here. You can see the password. So the format is exactly the same way. Whatever that we saw in Windows 7, so exactly the same way. The only thing is our word list was not compatible with John, the format. That's the reason I'm using a different tool for cracking it. As simple and straightforward. Clear? So I've done the hashes. Now let me go and crack it. For cracking, as I said, I'll be using OPH crack, where I've already downloaded the executable and the tables. Okay. So you need to purely download OPH crack on your Windows machine, and also download your tables _vista. So that is your word list. So here I'm using a default word list, which is of 459 MB. That is, let's see, yep, this one. Windows Vista, yeah, this one. This is the one which I'm using currently. Okay, so let me, so since this operating system I'm using is a 64-bit machine, double click on it. And the UI, this is the portable file. So what you have to do here is always first click on load, and we dump the password hash as a pwdum file, isn't it? Let me click on load pwdum file, get the explorer, go to the location where you have stored the hash file. This is GUI version of what we did in a CLI format, right? Click on load, and you can see here the list of hashes and the word list available over here. So the usernames are available over here. Next, we have successfully onboarded our hashes. Next, let's onboard our word list. So word list in terms of OPH crack is called as tables. So let us click on tables. To import new table, click on install. You need to locate where your folder is located. That is, your tables are located. And just select the table. Do not open it. Just select the table. Select the folder on which you have downloaded on your OPH crack folder, OPH crack website. Click on select folder. The folder will be activated. Click on OK. So now what we did is we have dumped the password hash using pwdum. Then we have exported it into text file. We have started OPH crack. We have imported the file onto OPH crack, and then we have imported the file, that is our word list, that is tables, into OPH crack. Then just click on crack here. So this should crack here. This should start the cracking procedure. So in cryptography, cracking hashes, it takes a huge amount of time. So hence you have to just need to sit back and wait. So the password that is cracked by default will be populated over here. Okay. So you can see it will take some amount of time, and you have already cracked one user's password, that is test, whose the username was Sheila and his password was test. It was cracked. And second password is cracked. This Jason's password is quality. His password also cracked. And while Martin's password also will be cracked, but since student password is pretty complicated, hence it will not be cracked in this case. That need to be cracked in a while using a custom word list. Clear? So this is one of the simple way how you can crack Windows systems password. The process, let me again recall. The process would be exactly same as we discussed. Only thing is we are using this with the help of OPH crack instead of DOM. Yeah. So you need to dump the password hash down to victim's computer. While dumping, you can either dump it via PWDump, or if you've already got MetaBit access, you can also use hash dump to do that. Copy the hash to attacker machine and run the hash through OPH crack file. Yeah, as simple and straightforward it is. So why it will automatically crack the remaining password, that is Apple and quality as well. See, so whatever the password is cracked, it will automatically populate over here. So now we can easily switch that to a particular user or use SSH or any other RDP connection to crack system's password. Clear? So any queries, guys, with respect to Windows password cracking? So again, let me recall the process. So we dumped the password hash with the help of PWDump. Then we exported the password hash again with the same PWDump. You can, as an alternative, you can also dump password hash using MetaBit access. Once you dump the password hashes, you need to import that using the OPH crack, a tool which is used to crack your password hash. Clear? Any queries so far, guys, with respect to Windows password cracking? It's pretty much same and simple forward. In my case, the system was pretty giving me issues. Instead of wasting much time, I just utilized a different lab. Great. So let's go forward and let's see how do you crack a Unix-based password. So I hope this machine is responding now. Okay, it's responding. So let me show the scenario. Scenario for Windows password cracking is pretty much similar. So let me put steps here. Steps goes like this. First, copy a /etc/password file and /etc/shadow to some temporary directory, so that you do not want to harm the actual files. Then merge both files into a single file. I'll tell you about that, the commands. After that, run John with default word list to crack the simplest formula. Okay. So coming to commands, very simple commands. So you need to just git cat etc cat password. Second, cat /etc/shadow. Obviously, let's say I'm creating a folder called temp in my directory. I'm just pasting this file into my temp directory. Okay. And after that, to merge both, use a command called unshadow. Unshadow / you need to always capture. Oh, let me put it this way. You need to always make sure you do the password file is sent first and shadow file is sent second. It would look like this, and you need to pipe the out into hash.txt. So these two commands will copy the etc file, the password file, and shadow file to a dump directory, and then this command will merge both passwords into a single file. And to crack, pretty simple, just use John space the hash.txt to crack password. In case if you use custom word list, then in case it would be ---- word list equal to path of a word list and then hash.txt. Simple as that. Clear? Let us do the same attack here. Mission. One sec. Let me put on the mission. It's give me okay, it's responding well, fine. So there's okay. Oh, there's another okay, let me create another temp here. Make Day3 temp, inside temp, and let me go temp. See, the file is completely empty. That's because in case you just don't want to accidentally do some errors in your do some harm to your system files. That's the reason I'm running it on a different file, different folder. So let me sum the same thing. I'm just dumping /etc/password. I'm coming into current directory. So dot means current directory. Okay. Which it's not cat, it's basically copy. My mistake. Copy. So I made a mistake over here as well. My mistake, sorry. Copy. So let's say error this and put dot here as well. So it doesn't confuse you much. Make sure you're already inside current directory, dump directory. Okay. Let me do the same thing with shadow. Both the files are existing over here. And you have to merge both the says by using unshadow command. Make sure you first select a password file and then select the shadow file. Command. So you're combining both password file and shadow file, and you're redirecting the output to hash.txt. As simple as that. Run enter. The file, you can see 3 files over here. Hash.txt, which contains your actual hashes. Clear? Now it's pretty simple. Just use done and run it on hash.txt. You should crack your passwords. So here my passwords are already cracked. So let me, so yeah, it is. So currently in my system, there's only one user called BKOB. Hence, it was able to crack the password of the system was also BKOB. Hence, you can see the password is cracked. Let me try to change the BKOB's password. Let me try it by giving his password as say. Let me put it as Windows. So my new password is basically Windows. Okay. So in Linux, it does not echo you back the password. So I have to do the same attack, same steps back again. So what I've done is I've changed my password now. By default, it was on BKB. Now this time I have to change the password to Windows. Let us see whether it will crack it or not. Windows, obviously, it's a common password, so obviously, it should crack the password. Which can provide. So you can see this is a default word list that is used by your John, and here it is. So the password of BKB user is cracked. What if we keep a password which is complicated? So if we keep a password which is complicated, something like this, p at $w0rd. So in this case, the password will not be cracked. Let me show you this example. We crack BKB's password to capital P at $2 W0RD. Enter. Again, same thing. Capital P at $W0RD. Password successfully updated. Let me redo it again. The steps. And if I try to crack a password with a default word list, even no matter whether it take the entire day, this password will not be cracked. Why? Because the default word list used by John or any other tool, it basically uses most commonly used passwords. So the BKB or Windows 10 or Windows 7, whatever it is, those are all commonly used passwords. Okay, commonly known passwords. Okay, so now to prevent that, the only way is you have to build up your own own word list. Okay, so this is the reason why people tend to say use a password which is at least 8 characters length, inclusive of both uppercase, lowercase, and a special symbol and a number. Why? Because it's the harder your password is, it's harder to crack it. Okay, so in such cases, what to do? So if your victim is using a complicated password, the only way you can bypass it is basically the only way you can crack it is to generate your own custom password. Right? Let me create my own custom password, or I'll use the password available by my in my Linux. We use what's that, Metasploit, uh, Linux, sorry, Unix passwords to my current directory, and inside that, let me create my password by name by this one. So let me keep it my password as p at sorry $w0rd. So this is my password. So the reason why I'm creating my word list is because I want to show you the positive scenario or negative scenario. I've already shown you the negative scenario. What if your password is a complicated password, and if it does not exist in your word list, it will take a lot of time and it will not crack it. But if your password is even though if you are using a complicated password, but if you are able to add that in a word list, in that case, you'll be able to crack the password. It's unique password. So now I'm using my custom password word list, and in the custom word list, I have mentioned my password. Hence, I can easily see the password has been successfully cracked. Okay, so this is a way how you can crack a Windows password and a Unix password. Clear? So we saw about how to crack Windows passwords as well as with the Linux passwords, different methodology, tools, techniques, all those things. In both the cases, they're using same methodology. Whatever hash you provide and whatever word list you provide. So whatever word list you provide, it will generate hashes for that word list, and that word list will become the newly generated hash will be compared with the existing hash, and when they match to each other, the concerned word list, the concerned keyword in the word list would be called as a password. Clear? Any queries, guys, regarding password cracking? Windows password cracking and offline password cracking. We'll come to online password cracking in a while. So before that, if you have any queries, please let me know the queries in the chat box, guys. Okay, because there's no any queries. That's great. So let's go forward and let's go for online password cracking. Okay, so since we are going to online password cracking, let me exit all those things. Let me go back to my password. Wrong. Let me be at $w0rd. Okay. I hope the password was right. P at $w0rd. That's right. So let me change my password so that I want to forget things. Okay. Let's start. Okay. So it's ready. So let's go for online password cracking. So how do you work on online password cracking? So far we saw about how do you crack offline password cracks or offline password, that is in other words, which is nothing but your hashes. So this gives you an idea about wherever you get hashes, whether it could be on computers or it could be on databases, how do you crack those hashes, right? So we'll go for online password cracking. Let us see how can you typically crack passwords on any website. So for an example, we will see how to crack passwords of this testing website called testfire.net. Okay, so before going into that, let us understand the methodology behind that, how online passwords work, how online passwords cracking works. Okay, the methodology is exactly similar to what we have seen in the offline password cracking. That is, if you see how the password cracking, how the authentication works online, it is similar to offline. That is, the only difference is in online, the victim will send the passwords through an HTTP format. So always understand, whenever you try to access a website, your actual passwords would be sent through a HTTP request and response. Okay, so everything that you talk on to a website will be sent as a HTTP request, and anything that you get from the website, you get it as a web response. That's how website works. So when we come after this module, when we come across introduction to web sites or web technologies, we'll discuss about what is HTTP, how this works, and so on. But just to give you an end, in the blocks we have various things here. This is a client, this is a server, and this is the server's data. So whenever you're trying to access anything online, what you do is you will send your credentials. Basically, obviously, you'll be having a login form, something like where it went. Something like this particular website. Well, this is basically a login form. Okay. So that's in that login form, you'll be sending your passwords. The passwords will be validated will be validated by your local database, the website's local database, where it will validate whether the given credentials is a valid credentials or invalid credentials. Yeah, so it will validate that. Suppose that if your credential is valid, you'll be redirected to secured area, that is your data. If the credential is invalid, it will send it to a login form saying that the credential is invalid. So it will send it back to the client. That's how the online password things work. Now, how do we crack the passwords online? So what do we do is, similar to offline password cracking, we'll keep a list of possible passwords called as word list. Yeah, we create a word list and we'll keep on sending the various combination of passwords one another. So it's instead of you manually typing all the passwords, say I'm typing admin and 123. If it gives me error, what I'll do is I'll again use the same admin and I'll use 1234566 and so on. So whatever this manual task of trying various combination of username and password manually, that I can do it automatically, and that is what we do on online password cracking. So in online password cracking, what we do is we will automate the process of trying various combination of username and password or the passwords. So whichever combination becomes the rightful password, system will give you access. If it is not the rightful combination, then obviously it will block us from accessing the data. As simple and straightforward it is. Okay. So hope the concept of online password cracking is pretty much clear. So what we do is we will contain a word list. It contain a list of possible passwords. Okay. So on this, and then we'll try to automate sending this possible passwords continuously. And if and only if the password exists in our word list, then we'll be able to crack the password. If your password does not exist in the word list, obviously you'll not be able to crack the password. Okay. So that makes us that in almost all the password cracking functionality, word list plays a vital role, which means if and only if your password exists in the word list, only then you'll be able to crack the password. Clear? Clear about the methodology of password cracking, guys? Any queries so far? Yes, we'll have a break. Is it okay to have a break, ma'am? Aparna, ma'am? We'll have a break now?
Yeah, no problem, sir. For 10 minutes, sir?
Yes, ma'am. We'll have 10 minutes break.
Okay, sir. Okay, no
We'll
issues.
take a 10 minutes break. It's 4:31, so we'll be back by 4:40. And post the break, we'll be coming across the online password cracking. And post that, we'll come across we'll see the technologies of web. So how web works. Okay, latest web and the web 1.0. Okay, so it's 4:31 now. We'll be back by 4:40. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. Hi, man. Can I raise you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, again, welcome back, Session.
Yeah, we can start off.
Thank you. So yes, welcome back, guys. And yes, we're in the part of understanding online password cracking. So we understood about how methodologically how passwords will work. So it's nothing but online password cracking is nothing but trying various combinations of passwords and username and passwords in an automative way. That's the only thing that we do on online. Okay. So the methodology that I've performed over here would be the same thing for almost all the websites, irrespective of whether it is HTTP based website or HTTPS based website, whatever it is. Okay. For this purpose, I'm going to be using tools. So let me first specify here: online password cracking. Tools used would be Firefox as a browser, and we're using a very vital tool in terms of web application security, burp suit. So here I'm going to be using only a very minute particle of burp suit, very much used on it. So whatever methodology that I apply, you could utilize it across various different aspects, but here I'm going to limit it specifically for a password cracking. Okay, so I'm going to be using Firefox browser and burp suit, a web application testing tool. Okay, so burp suit basically comes up with two versions: a community edition and a professional edition. So there's a paid tool and a community edition tool. Okay, so to download the community edition tool, you could use just go to burpsuit community edition and download. So community edition comes up with few limitations. The limitation would be time delay. You cannot automate rapid automation of the payloads. Cannot happen in community edition. And the scanning capability will not be available in the community edition. Okay, so only have the manual essential manual tool. So burpsuit also comes up with a vulnerability scanner, but that does not comes up with the community edition. It comes up with the paid version of the tool. Clear? So let's go forward, and to download it, you can just click on get community. The file will automatically get downloaded in your case. Okay, so in this case I've already downloaded the tool. So no longer I'm no longer required to download this tool. It's already downloaded in my case. Okay. So I'll just utilize that particular thing. Okay, so it's already running. Let me use a burpsuit community edition. Okay, perfect. So burpsuit is basically a proxy tool. What is the meaning of proxy? So proxy is a configuration where instead of you directly hitting the target, you're forwarding the request, you're sending the request through a third party person. Example, let me give you. Which is a very simple example of proxy. Yeah, proxy. You can get a detailed article on this proxy, but just an example. A proxy is a computer where instead of you sending a data directly to the target, let's say in this case, a sender 192.168.1.15, ultimately he is the one who is sending the data, and receiver, that is 10.10.10.16, is the actual person who is receiving the data. But due to some either your packet may be disabled, or because of some firewall settings, or due to some XYZ reasons, you cannot send data directly. Hence, you will send the data through the proxy server. Sorry. So you are sending the data through a proxy server. Okay. So in the proxy server, since you are sending the data through the proxy server, when the receiver receives the data, it will display as if the data originated from the proxy machine instead of coming from you or the actual sender. Okay. There are few advantages of using proxy. The reason why people use proxy, there are two major reasons. One is to avoid, is to basically hide their identity. As I said, when A sends the data to B and B forwards the data to C, at the C's end, when you look at the packet trace, it would portray as if the packet was originally sent by B. So if A has sent some malicious data, in that case, C will not know that the packet actually originated from A, because in the logs, it would be portrayed as if the packet came from B. Okay, that's one of the reasons. One, to hide your identity. Second is to block your restrictions. Okay, so this is one of the common ways how people can utilize blog websites or machine which you do not have access, because this proxy typically, so obviously best example is torrent. So you cannot directly access torrent because it's blocked by blocked by ISPs. So what typically people do is they will access a proxy server, and it will portray as if the packet came from proxy server. So because the packet will go from proxy server, and from proxy server it will go to the torrent. Hence, that will be allowed. So hence, on the other day, proxies are used for purpose to hide identity or to or basically to allow access to an inaccessible data or blocked websites. Yeah. Now we are using burp suit as a proxy, not because we want to use something, you want to access some manipulation, some blocked data or to hide your identity. Instead, we want to hijack the request. Always understand, any communication that you do to a website happens as a web request and web responses. As your example of that, let me show you. So this is a combination of how websites and your browser communicates. Okay, so when you go to Google and type www.google.com. So what actually happens is that whatever you type would be converted into a web request, and it would send to a web browser, web server, and web server will send the response back, where it's the job of the web browser to render that particular code and give you the content, which means HTML is basically a tag-based language. So anything that you see over here, when server sent you the data, it did not send you the data like this. Instead, the server sent you data something like this, right? This is the actual code which is sent from the server. This is the actual response which was sent from the burp suit server to your browser. Now it's the job of the browser to render this code into a nice looking web page, giving you hyperlinks, giving you this GIF images, giving you various other options. So it's a job of your browser by default. Whenever you send data, it will automatically convert into a web request, send it to the server. Similarly, when a server is responding back to you, that time whatever code it sends you, that code will be it will automatically render it and show you as a nice looking web page. So it acts as a middle person between you, the physical you, and the website, so that it can bridge the difference between the computer and the human, right? So that you can easily see it, so you can easily perform actions, right? But along with this, what happens in your system is that whenever you make requests and whenever you get the responses, there are a lot of hidden features that happens in your system. A lot of client controls will be bypassed. A lot of activities will be carried out. A lot of code will be running. So while doing this, so more precisely, when you're testing such websites, the best way of testing any websites would be getting into the core of how the actual communication is happening. Okay, so what burp suit does, it will intercept between each communication performed between two systems. Okay, so in this case, let's say your browser is A and D is your website. So all your packets will go through burp suit. So hence, since all the packets are going through burp suit, so you can easily see what communication is actually happening between your browser and the website. In that case, you can bypass your client limitation, and you can also understand your network, or you can understand the website flow or web application flow much more efficiently. So ultimately, that is why burp suit is used. Okay, I hope it's pretty much clear. If you recall, in the very first session, I think it was in a penetration testing class. So when you guys were in a penetration testing class, a lot of people were asking about how do you perform privilege escalation, or how can you tamper a particular request, isn't it? So your actual tampering can happen with the help of burp suit. How? Because each communication that you initiate from a browser, you're configuring it to go for that particular communication to go to burp suit, and from burp suit, the communication will go to the web server. While coming back, the response will come from the web server to the burp suit, and burp suit will give you the data to your browser. So burp suite acts as a middle person. In other words, it acts as a proxy server, so that it will connect you on the server, along with also allowing you to edit and view the internal communication between a browser and a typical web server. Clear? So that's the reason why it is very much crucial in bug bounty on web application attacks. Okay, so obviously we're not going to see that deeper about burp suite, because burp suite is another subject in its own. So obviously it would be foolishness to cover entire burp suite in a very limited amount of time. So hence I'm keeping burp suite as I'm just using burp suite as a tool so that we can crack passwords. Clear? Now first let us see how to configure burp suite onto your browser so that you can perform any type of attack. Okay, let us start from scratch. First and foremost, you need to download and run burp suite. Okay, you download the community edition. In case you want to purchase, you can purchase it, but I would recommend to work on community edition in the early case. Once you download and run, you will be prompted to this particular page. Always understand. So here in our case, we are using burp suite for the purpose of password cracking. Okay, not for anything else. So as soon as you open up a website, or as soon as you open up burp suite, this is the dashboard that you look like. This is the latest burp suite. First, you need to configure the browser. So first, to perform any attack on burp suite, you need to configure burp suite with your browser. How do you do that? Yes, as soon as you log into burp suite. So just give me a second. Let me remove all these things that I don't want to do it. Okay, perfect. I open my browser, I open my burp suite. So make sure by default you will be directed to dashboard. Go to proxy. Under proxy, make sure under proxy, under intercept, make sure you turn off the intercept. So what happens when you turn on the intercept? As I said, any activity that you do on the browser, the Firefox, every data will go to burp suite, and from burp suite it will go to the web server, isn't it? When you turn on the intercept, it would be something like you have a gate, you have a watchman over here, and the watchman will check each packet going into the server, each packet going from your browser to internet. So hence you will have to manually forward each and every packet. So in cases where you will be required to manually inspect and forward the packet, that time we can use intercept on. But for most of the cases, you have to turn it off. Why? If and only if you turn on the intercept off, only then you'll be able to access the data much more efficiently and in a continuous fashion. Okay. First, as soon as you log into burp suite, go to proxy, go to intercept, and turn the intercept off. Yeah, this is the intercept is off. And second thing, go to options and make sure it is this checkbox is enabled. By default, burp suite will be running on loopback interface. If you want, you can also let it run it on your HTTP interface as well. But for the earlier case, since we are using burp suite as a password cracking tool, I would recommend to use it in default settings. Okay. So the only thing that we need to do is go to proxy, go to intercept, and click the intercept turn off. And after that, just click on target and wait until your target website is populated over here. Okay. So what you need to do next? Next, after so this is the part of your burp suite. Next thing that you do is go to your Firefox, the browser, and you need to redirect all traffic that is going from your browser to burp suite. You have to direct it to burp suite. That is, go to options and go to the bottom. Go to network settings. And network settings, make sure you add manual. By default, your browser is configured to go to auto detect proxy settings. Change it to manual proxy settings, and here make sure you give 127.0.0.1:8080. What is this IP address and port number? This is nothing but the IP address and port number on which your burp suite is running. See, 127.0.0.1:8080. Okay. Yeah, this one, make sure you enable this. Also use this for FTP and HTTPS connection. If you do not enable this, you will only be able to hack HTTP website. You will not be able to hack HTTPS website. Okay, so make sure you enable these options. Okay. So as soon as you enable this option, just give me a sec. Let me do some required changes so that it can not give me error. Okay, yes. Okay. So as soon as you give on add the process settings, so you should be able to intercept any HTTP website you handle it. Let's say I'm taking testfire.net. So the rest, whatever website I'm accessing here should be visible in this list. In the burp sort, the left tab indicates the website that you're accessing. You can say testfire.net. Okay. On the right tab, in the right column, in the right part, the above, the first tab indicates the endpoints or website or web pages that you've accessed, and the lower tab indicates what data you have sent and what data you have received. Request means what you have sent, response means what you have received. So by using a very basic get method, very basic test, I'll just access home page. While accessing a page, this is a request that your browser is sending to your website. The web request looks like, and this is how the response, how the website is responding back to you. So we'll see about this web request and response in a while when we come across web basics. Okay, so in our case, currently we're using burp only for our cracking, parser cracking purpose. Okay, so always understand, make sure as soon as you configure your burp suite, make sure first you open any HTTP website and confirm that whatever website you're opening, make sure it is populated over here. In case if you have after configuring your proxy, and if you're opening a website and the website is not able to load, if it keep on loading over here, that means you have not turned off the intercept. Okay, so make sure you turned off the intercept. So the process is, as soon as you open a burp suite, turn off the intercept by going to proxy and intercept, and by going to proxy under options, make sure you see this checkbox is enabled. Once this two is confirmed, go to your browser, go to your options, and under proxy settings, make sure you add burp suite address, that is loopback IP address, that is 127.0.0.1, and put 8080 in the process, and open up any HTTP website by default, and then see if the website is populated over here or not. So once if your HTTP website is successfully populated, then go to any HTTP website. Let me go to www.google.com. Very commonly, you will face an error over here. I don't know why it's not giving an error. It should throw an error. Let me see. It should throw an error. Why it's not showing error? Sec. PQ or ST. This is not showing an error. It's awkward. Let me try to reset my browser. Ouch! I have. I think I have not enabled my proxy settings probably. Yeah, this is what the error you get, right? So as soon as you open up, you try to open up any HTTP website, HTTP based website will automatically open up. But if you try to open up any HTTPS based website, you get this error saying that software is preventing Firefox from safely connecting to website, blah blah blah, saying that some post CAA or some expiry information. That means that your burp suite is able to intercept all your HTTP data, but it's failing to intercept any HTTPS data. So what do you need to do next? You have to make sure burp suite is configured for both HTTP and HTTPS. For HTTP, the basic Firefox settings is enough, but to enable or to track or open up any HTTPS based website, in that case, you need to go to http://burp. Just burp, nothing else. Do not do anything else. Just type http://burp or hit http://127.0.0.1 or your the socket of burp suite. Try that. You'll get burp suite web page. On the right top corner, you'll find something called CA certificate. Click on it. Download it. Make sure where it is downloaded. It's downloaded in my downloads directory. So you download a certificate. Then go to options Under options, go to privacy and security. Under privacy and security, scroll to the bottom and see view certificates. Under view certificates, go to authorities subtab. Under authorities, click on import and import that particular certificate that you have downloaded. Make sure while importing, make sure you enable all the checkboxes. Okay over here. Okay. Once this is done, once you have imported the certificate successfully, you can go and import any HTTPS. You can download any HTTPS based website. Yes, you have any queries? I think hope that was a disturbance in that case. Great, it's okay, let's go forward. So these are steps that we did. So let me notify these all steps one by one. What steps? Steps to configure burp suit. First, download and run burp suit. I prefer to use Firefox browser because you can easily switch between process settings. In Chrome, it's pretty complicated. Okay. So download and run Firefox browser. After that, there are settings under burp suit, under intercept, under proxy. Under proxy, under proxy, and
so there's somebody who is unmuted. Can you please go on mute? We can hear some traffic sound. I think Dr. Krishna Swami.
Sorry, I think now the issue, I mean, the background noise is clear, I think. Okay, so let's just continue. Okay, that's great. So yes, let's continue. So the settings go like this: intercept. Make sure you turn off the intercept. Okay, so one settings, and after that, go to burp suit, proxy, and yes, someone is trying to raise a query. I think sir is having some audio issue, so please can you go on mute or click on mute or disconnect your mic and would solve the issue. Okay, I hope that's will be clarified in a few seconds. So let's go forward. Yes, go to proxy and make sure you go to options and make sure box is enabled. So this is everything you need to do in burp suit, but in Firefox you need to go to Firefox options and network settings. You set manual proxy to 127.0.0.1:8080. Okay. After that, go to proxy. So open http://burp or http://127.0.0.1:8080 on right top corner. Click and download a CA certificate. Okay, after downloading, go to Firefox, go to options, and options go to privacy and security. Make sure you click on view certificates. Under this, click or go to authorities. And then click on import. Under import, navigate and import the CA certificate or the downloaded G certificate. Okay, make sure you enable all the check boxes. Make sure you enable check boxes while importing. Okay, so there are steps that you need to follow to configure your burp suite on a system. Very simple. So once the system is configured, it's pretty straightforward. So that means any website that you access should be available over here. Example, sorry, my mistake. So example, let me say if I'm trying to open up website, something like let's say open up. So let me open up some so www dot test right. www.test.oneweb.com. Sorry, mistake. It's not test.oneweb. It's not www. It's just test.oneweb.com. Okay. The site is no, it's not available, so it should be available over here by name test.oneweb. Right. So you should be able to intercept any website that trying to access. Clear? So these are the steps to enable or import your kind of configure your browser to burp suite. Next is to attack. So as I said, I'm going to be using test4.net here. And how do you click on attack? Crack the passwords. We are trying to capture the login of this particular website. Very simple. If you want to identify the login of a particular website, then first thing is go to make sure you first intercept the traffic. After that, click on the there are two scenarios that you can try to crack password. First scenario is one is username is known, password is unknown. Okay. And in second scenario, both username and password is unknown. Okay, so let us take both scenarios. Pretty simple and straightforward. Okay. So first scenario, what you need to do is obviously if you know if you know or do not know the password, obviously you should put some dummy data. In this case, I'm just using test/test and click on go. So basically, what you need to do, you need to first make sure your traffic is intercepted. You should be able to record all the traffic into burp suite over here. And second thing, go to the login page and hit some dummy data over there. Okay, like in we case, we use test and test. After that, obviously, whatever web page that we opened up will be available in burp suite. Go to the page, first hit the server. This is a website that we are trying to access. In the first tab, we will be able to see all the web pages that we hit it. Search for a website which has post method. Okay, so website or web browsers or in HTTP uses methods to define the type of communication held. So get is a method when a client is able to get information from the server. That is, in whatever cases where browser is getting information from the server, it will go to be using get method. Whenever client or this browser is sending information to the server, it is going to use a method called as post method. Okay, so in our case, we are sending a credential, isn't it? Which means we are sending credentials to the server. So hence, these credentials are always sent in post method. Always understand in HTTP, whatever credentials that we send to any website, we always send it through post method. Okay, and obviously you can see there's only one post method here. So click that particular thing, and in the request you can see the complete data, and the request body you can see the complete data that we sent. If you remember, so that we use test and test for username and password. Or else what we can do is we can also do one more thing, that is you can use test1 for username and test2 for password, so that you can easily differentiate between what was the username and what was the password. And here it is. See, a test1 for the username and test2 for password. Now what do we do next? Very simple. So first what you do, you need to first configure your burp suite with the browser, with your Firefox browser. After configuring it, make sure you're able to intercept the data. After that, open the website that we want to hack, or open the login page that we want to compromise. And on the login page, generate some dummy data. Make sure it is visible on a browser, sorry, on a browser. After that, open the request that we are trying to access. Right click inside the request and click on send to intruder. So intruder is a type of scripts or type of kind of a tab that comes up in burp suite to perform all the all kinds of password cracking and fuzzing. So in web application testing, we also come across something called fuzzing. To do anything related to fuzzing, we use intruder. Okay. So in our case, we have added successfully to intruder. Now we need to configure it. So this is similar to we have imported the exploit. Now we need to configure the exploit and execute it. Clear? So here we have 4 tabs in which 3 are major. The first tab we need to verify whether the given website domain name and port number are correctly mentioned. By default, since you have added into it would be correct, but just cross verify. Always remember HTTP would always be port 80, HTTPS would always be port 443. So just be aware of that. Go to positions. So this is where you will be injecting our various combination of password. Clear? So what was the first scenario? Our first scenario was we know the username, but we do not know what is the password, isn't it? So what I'll do, I'll clear all the data. So as soon as you go into intercept, or as soon as you forward this into intruder, click on clear. So it will clear out all the data. So here in this case, we know the username, but we do not know the password, isn't it? So let us keep the username known. So one of the valid username for this particular account is admin. Here I know the admin username, but I do not know the password. So in this case, select whatever dummy data that you have given in the password field, right? So since we are using the first scenario, we do not know the username, we know the username, we do not know the password. In such cases, select the dummy data that you have given. Select only the dummy data that you have given. In our case, we gave test2. Only select that text2 word and then click on add. So what this will do is this will make the test2 or the variable as a placeholder, so that we can automate and we can give a list of possible words onto this placeholder and give a various try. That's what we are doing here. Okay, as simple as that. Now, if you're using the first scenario where you know the username but we do not know the password, make sure you select the attack type as sniper. If you're using the second scenario, we do not know username nor the password, that time you can use cluster bomb. Always remember, for scenario 1, okay, use attack type as sniper. For scenario 2, make sure you use attack type as cluster bomb. Obviously, there are different variations in burp suite for the meaning of this, but again, yes, it will be a bit of time consuming and it's out of context in this current case. That's the reason I'll deal with only sniper and cluster bomb. Clear? So currently we don't know the username, we do not know the password, which is first scenario. So hence, let's keep the attack type as sniper, and we have successfully done over here. So what we did? We configured our burp suite, we intercepted our dummy request, we moved into intruder, we cross-verify the target. In the positions, we cleared out the unnecessary selections, and we only selected the placeholder where we sent our dummy data for the password field and added it, and you selected the rightful attack type. Let's go to payloads. So this is where you need to add your word list. Now, word list could be a text file, or it could be any. You could also manually type in the text file. So let me create a text file, pw.txt, and create a list of possible passwords. So we can use like say welcome, Windows 7, Windows, and let's say test, and let's say bnmite, or let me put ch, let me put bkob, and let me put admin over here, let me put test over here. Sorry, my mistake. test at 123 over here, and then password, all those things. You can also put demo 1234, demo at 123, all this shit. Okay, so okay, so this is a sample word list I've created. So you can download the online word list available on the internet, or you can use any word list. Okay, so I'm using this text file. So to import this text file, just click on load, navigate to this folder, and in my case, where is my desktop? Oh, this is my desktop. So you can see there are 11 characters here, which has been added up. So you can also do one more thing, that is you can just open up the text file, Control-Alt, copy the data into clipboard, and then you can also directly come here and paste it as well. It will also do so it's both the same thing. Okay, so since there are only one word list, so everything is by default. So you have to make sure all the, whether your target domain name and port number and the given position and the word list are efficiently given. Just click on Start Attack. That will do the attack for you. Here you will get an error in your community edition. That's because you're using a free version. Hence, the request would be throttle. Okay, that means it will be going on with a time delay. So wait for a while and see how this could respond. Okay, so this is a response that you will get. But if depending upon whether your password has got cracked or not, depending upon the status code and length of the response, we can validate. Now, how can I validate whether my given password has been cracked or not? There's a small checklist for that purpose. Let me use that. Okay, copy link. Go back to our. Yes, you can even both. So it's not like compromising. You're trying to crack passwords, and yes, you can compromise both HTTP and HTTP website using POSIX servers. That's perfectly yes. In the slide, you can find the list, the checklist that you can use to crack passwords. Okay, the two parameters that you need to look for is in the intruder response. See the status code that you see, and see the length that you see. I'm just giving you a general context. For some certain websites, for wrong passwords, the response code will be different, and for the right password, the response code will be different. Which means different is for some websites, 302 or 301 means the password has been cracked. For some websites, the same in that case for 200, if you get that means the password has not been cracked. And for some websites, it's a vice versa. That is, for password crack, it may show 200. For some password not cracked, it would be 302. Okay. So in this case, if you see, even admin is the rightful password, but still, if you see for all right passwords or wrong passwords, the status code remains 302. So obviously, common path. So then we'll have to go to the third scenario. So third scenario is that for all the wrong passwords, the response length would be same. Okay, the response length is 145 for all things. But for the right password, the response length would be different. See, the only different length is basically 271. Right? And always understand there would be a huge difference between the response length and the positive lengths and the negative lengths for the cracked password and not for the uncracked passwords. Yeah, so it will be having a huge difference. Like 145 and 271 is no longer near. Isn't it? So this confirms that for the username admin and password admin, I'm able to log into the password. I'm able to hack and gain the access. So if I log in here with admin, I'll be able to log into this mission. Yeah. So you can validate that a given username and password was been successfully cracked. Clear? So this is the first scenario where you know the username but you do not know the password. Let us go for the second scenario. In second scenario, it's the same thing until the selection part is exactly the same thing. The only difference is make sure you select both username and click on add, and select both password and click on add. Always remember, select and add first the username, select and add the password second. So always it depends upon which character did you selected first and which character did you select second. Okay, please be aware of that. Why? Because always understand, so just for a easy is, always select username first and add it. Secondly, add the password in the second time. And make sure you're using cluster BROM. Because here you will be requiring two word lists, isn't it? You'll be using two word lists, one for username and one for password. Let me use another content here. Right? Second scenario is, second scenario, what you need to do, you need to select both username and password. Make sure you select username first and password word second. In attack type, make sure you selected cluster bomb. Go to payloads. In payloads, you will have to enable another set called as payload set. Okay. In payload set, previously you had only one, right? Now you have two. Why? Because we are having two insertion point, right? We have 1 point over here, 1 point over here. The one with the one number is nothing but the element that you selected first. The one with the two means that the element that you selected second time. As simple as that. Okay. And from here on, it's the same thing. Select one, import your word list. Select two and import the word list, and it's exactly the same thing. Okay. You can see the request count is 120, 144. Why? Because it is making a combination of both username and password, and it is using cross. So the usernames into password. So let us click on attack and sit back and wait for at least like 10-15 seconds. So it'll take some time. As you can see, and obviously we know that this website, you can identify the passwords, right or wrong passwords based on the length. So let me sort the response with length. So I think this request will take around like 144 seconds. That is almost like more than 2 minutes. So I think we have to wait for a while. Meanwhile, you guys can respond to queries. I'll respond to the queries. So what would happen over here? So this will give me the whatever username password was being cracked. So it would give us a different length for the for our passwords, for the cracked passwords. For others, it will give you 145 only. Clear? So let me again recall what we did. First and foremost, you need to first download burp suite and Firefox and run on it. Okay, and later we need to configure your Firefox into your burp suite. And after configuring it, you have to validate, check whether the packet has been received or not. Later, go into your Firefox, open the website that you want to access, that you want to crack passwords on. After that, go to the web page that you want to crack the passwords on. Create a dummy request. Make sure you give some different variable for username and different variable for password. Now in password cracking, after these steps, you have two scenario. One where you know the password, where you know the username but do not know the password, or you do not know, you neither know password nor you do not know anything about your username as well. So if you know the username, then leave the username field as it is. Only select the password field, and then go to the and then select that particular password field and click on add. Make sure in the attack type you type sniper, and then go to payloads and load your word list, and then click on start attack. In case if you are trying both username and password, that is, if you want to try both the both your username and password if you do not know, in that case, just select cluster bomb. Make sure you select username first and password second. Okay, so that you will get enough amount of data and time. Okay, if you can done efficiently. Later, after that, you can just click on. After that, you can select one for the firstly selected data, that is username. Add word list for that. Second, select your word list for the password, and you can go on. So since it's 12, it's taking a lot of amount of time. Let me reduce the number of characters set here. Let me remove all the unnecessary data. So let me remove welcome, Windows, and let me keep very few things. Let me also remove test. So now I have 10, or I think I have 5. So this would be 5 to 5, 25 requests. Let me clear out both and add paste both, just to keep these things for in the simplest fashion. So this should do the things pretty faster because there are only 25 requests now. Okay, so it will obviously take some time. In the meanwhile, it will do the tag and give us the output. So obviously, as we know that if the passwords are right, it would give you. So always understand some missions would give you tracking your username and password based on session IDs. What I would recommend is as soon as you capture the request, make sure you remove out the cookie field. Remove the cookie field and then click on start track, which will eliminate the rate limiting. Okay, so this will take some time, or at least it will take another 25 seconds to crack the passwords. But attack scenario will be same thing. So whichever request has different length, that would be the right password. Okay, there will be cases where if your password is not present in the word list, then obviously you will miss your password will obviously not be cracked. If your given word list is not present, if your password is not present in the given word list. Okay. So hope so far it's pretty much clear. By the time it gets loaded up, if you have any queries, please mention the queries in the chat box, guys. So how do hackers get passwords? So in password cracking, theoretically, there are ways where you can, there's something called password profiling, where a hacker will try to, what he'll do is he'll try to capture your information by either through your social networking or through some other scenario. You will try to capture your information, what are information about you. You will try to capture that, like what is your pet name, what is your spouse name, do you have any nicknames, or those kind of information. You will try to identify that. Obviously, as a human, we'll be using, we are used to use a few words that is very near to us. So hence, a password that we use would be near to us. Hence, so these guys will try to guess those passwords and thereby resulting in gaining the password, getting the passwords. So what hackers do in real world, they'll be using custom word lists for specific people. They will profile the word list in such a way that it will all contain all your words related to you, your name, your date of birth, your bike number, your bike number plate numbers, and all your mobile number, those kind of information. They will try to fetch it from different sources, and they will use it as a part of the password. Okay. Okay. They use a password list and apply brute force attack using burp suite. So whatever we did currently, it's basically called as brute force. Okay. So this overall attack in technical terms is basically called as password brute force. Right? So brute force is nothing but trying various combination of events or trying various combinations. You can see one attack is being password has been cracked. Username admin and admin. This is your difference is 346. So wait for a while. Another account should be cracked. That is JSmith, whose password is demo123. So let us see. Is also password should be cracked. Okay. So hope so far it's pretty much clear, guys. Any queries regarding online password cracking? I think we're almost end to the password cracking. We just need to wait until the password gets cracked. That's the only thing. We have already cracked one password. We are waiting for another password to be cracked. It should take in a couple of minutes to get cracked. Okay, so this was the right password, but it's giving you error. Let me see the right password just to check. Demo1234 was the password, if I remember. The website has become so laggy now. Okay, that's great. No problem with that. So hope so far it was pretty much clear regarding online password cracking, guys. Any queries regarding online password cracking? Smith. The password was demo1234. Check. The password was demo1234. It's the right password. It should crack password, but probably the system is giving an error because we are repeatedly trying various combinations, so that's identified as a malicious hackers. So yes, in the case yes. So hope so far it's pretty much clear, guys. Any queries regarding password cracking, online and offline both? Okay. Okay, let's consider there's no queries. So here, so let us shortly summarize. So what we're doing online password cracking is that we have we had used burp suite for the cracking purpose, and in burp suite we first configured burp suite with your browser, and then we try to we try to capture a particular packets going from our website, victim website, and then we basically intercepted, and then we intercept the traffic, and then use those packets on which we are sending the credentials, and we then we automated the request with our various different combination of username and passwords. Yeah. So this website was giving us a response with respect to the response length. Differently, certain websites may give you accuracy depending upon their status codes. Some may give you with respect to response length and again status code as well. Clear? And to update again, guys, all the slides I'm using for it could be either for exploitation, it could be either for password cracking, and also for other things. So I've added those links in this document. And obviously, just like yesterday, I'll be sharing this document to all you guys through ma'am. So I'll be sending it to ma'am, and she will be sending it to you guys while sharing the same video links. Okay, so this was about password cracking. So let us see a few of the discussion regarding network attacks. And unfortunately, because of time purpose, we'll going to be seeing the theoretical item of this technical of these attacks. The reason I picked up the attacks in terms of exploitation and password cracking is because those are one of the common threats that we get as a normal user end. That's the reason I've used this one, so that you can also be aware and you can also try to perform this on a corporate when you go for a job. Like coming to DOS and MITM, the two other topics that I'm going to be discussing in the next few minutes. So those things would be more sort of in a conceptual based things. Again, there will not be much hands-on in it because it contains its own dependency and it takes much more time on it. So obviously, I'll give you about a few hints what this particular attack is and how to get prevented from it. Okay. So I think we have already covered a hint about it, but let me give you a detailed idea about what is DOS first. Okay, as we discussed in the earlier case, DOS is basically an attack where a victim will try to, a hacker is trying to attack, a hacker is trying to send a huge load of packets to the victim. And obviously a system, every computer will be having some limitations with the amount of packet it can handle at any given point of time. Right, so when you keep on sending those keep on sending those packets continuously at one particular amount of time, the system will not be able to handle that much load, and that's how DOS attack is usually populated. So in order to do this attack on the real world, you can use tools like HOIC and LOIC. Let me put this the network attacks. DOS is an attack which stands for denial of service. So DOS can be accomplished. DOS can be accomplished by sending malicious packets continuously to a specific service system. So you can typically do with the tools like AICTE and LOIC. So make sure you do not do it on a real world websites. Rather than you can use your own dummy systems, like you can try it against your Windows 7 or Windows 8 computer on whatever port you have. Okay, so the best way to prevent from this DOS attacks is better to always make sure your system is updated in it, and make sure you are using your system is completely updated and you're using any like if you are expecting any huge attack, I mean huge traffic from internet, make sure you use redundant systems so that you can keep your traffic in a balanced format. Okay, so one person, if he performs attack to another person, is basically, I mean, one computer is hitting attack to one other computer is basically called as DOS. If there are a group of computers hitting, a single target, it's basically called as DDoS or distributed denial of service. Okay, repeat this way: distributed denial of service. Okay. This would be 1-to-1, and this would be many to 1. Okay. But DOS, coming to sniffing. So basically MITM or sniffing is a kind of attack where so one victim will be able to see what other people are talking to each other. So what happens in MITM is basically in a network, I think let me put it this way, the rightful image. Yeah, there it is. What happens is through switch, obviously in real world, your communication would be connected like this. Let me put it by a paint and draw things. Okay, so let's say this is you, basically you are B. Okay, so let's say you are talking to D. Okay, so what attacker will try to do is attacker in this sniffing, let's say C is the attacker. What he'll do is whatever communication that you send from one computer to another computer, what happens is those contents, technically the packets will be traveling from B computer to C computer, something like this, traveling like this. Okay, and it would reach something like this to the other person. Now, since C is also a part of the same network, what you could do? You could use a few techniques called as ARP spoofing. Is a layer 2 attack or LAN attack where hacker spoofs your MAC address and hijack packets coming to a packet exchange between two victims. So there's something called ARP spoofing. Okay, spoofing MAC address, or it's also called as ARP spoofing. So ARP is a basic protocol which is used to translate MAC address to IP address. IP address to MAC address, my mistake. So hacker will try to perform this ARP spoofing, and then by doing ARP spoofing, what happens is you could so the hacker C will be able to hijack your packets. So that's whatever the packet is coming to D, it will go to C, and then a copy is made at C, and then it goes on D. So whatever we did on burp suit, the same thing will be done here automatically without a knowledge of the knowledge of the user. Okay, so obviously this is a theoretical item. Practically seeing this will consume a huge amount of time. You would be requiring a single day only to discuss about sniffing. That's the reason, and it's again not much into pen testing because in organization they'll be already covering up this the basic remedies for this. That's the reason I've not picked up sniffing as a part. So I've taken up the attacks that you will be required to perform on organization to learn more about this particular overall field. But yes, again, as a theoretical knowledge, it is required for you to understand what is sniffing. How can it be prevented? So what happens in MITM or sniffing is that the hacker will try to spoof your app or MAC addresses, or basically perform something called ARP spoofing. Thereby, you will be able to redirect the packets coming from one computer to another computer so that it could reach the attacker and then it goes to other computer. It's something like when two people are communicating to each other, you go just in mid of the particular people and just acts as a translator to the two guys. It's like something like a middleman, right? So that's why this way you'll be able to, your all packets will be visible to other person. Clear? So this you can use with the tools like ATAL, which is used to perform MITM or sniffing, and you could read the packets by call as Wireshark. Or you can also use something like ARP spoof. ARP spoof is a specific tool used for performing specifically ARP spoofing. So this kind of tools you could use to steal or to sniff the data exchange between two computers. Yeah. Again, as I said, it's a very simple and a straightforward attack. The only way to remediate this is basically make sure you use also, I would say, always use encrypted protocols. So the only way we can be secure across any sniffing attack is by always using encrypted protocols. That is, instead of using HTTP, use HTTPS. Instead of using Telnet, use SSH. Instead of using something like FTP, use SFTP. Those way you can be able to remediate your sniffing attack. The remediation for DOS is basically use always update your systems, always update your system. Make sure to have a decent firewall to block pretty much of your DOS attacks. Clear, guys? Any queries? How quick was this? How to do server attack to get a list of password using burp suite? So with your password cracking, you cannot get a list of possible passwords. So you can only perform attacks like you can verify. You have a list of password. You can try if any of these passwords exist on the target computer. That's the only thing that you will be able to do. So you will not be able to find out what passwords are existing on this machine. That you can do by using SQL injection. So if you're able to perform SQL injection, that will be seeing that tomorrow. So if you're able to do SQL injection, that time you'll be able to leak out the data, the credentials that is stored on a website or database. But except that, obviously you can do that with burp suite as well. But except doing SQL injection, you cannot get a list of passwords just by password cracking. In password cracking, what we do is we'll try to identify any of our password exists in the database or not. And what you can do. Like, is there a cyber attack in India since lockdown? There are a huge amount of cyber attacks that has been happened. If you go through the cyber attacks, the crimes of let's say, I think March 22nd was a lockdown date in India, and if you take the next 1 month until government released the use of alcohol, until the bars and alcohol wine shop were open, until then the crime rate in India was automatically decreased. Whereas I'm talking about a normal crime rate, but vice versa, we had a huge up in the cyber attacks. And if you see, all the cyber attacks were nothing but phishing, compromising through malwares, and these were the common attacks. So, or there's a SQL injection for any websites. So a lot of people had time to hack. So a lot of people tried bug bounty and tried for web application related vulnerabilities. And few people, what they did is they had time, so they became prone for hackers by clicking on unknown links, by clicking on malicious links. They became prone from the hackers, and a lot of people started to lose money. If you just go through the news articles of, let's say, 2 months ago or 3 months ago, you can see a lot of people have lost their money due to clicking a link that comes up in your phone. So what happens is, nowadays everyone is connected to their phone. They use UPIs, right? So UPI is basically nothing but when you want to transfer money to someone, you can easily write a script, kind of a JavaScript. And so as soon as the permission is given by you, like when you click on OK or kind of a decline or later or apply or accept, so those kind of a script, when it's executed, it will automatically be forwarding you to UPI. And obviously, if by knowingly or unknowingly, if you enter the password without knowing, then obviously the amount of money from your computer, from your mobile phone on your account will automatically go out, right? So what hackers are typically using? So they are using like client-based attacks, that is your phishing attacks. They're using malwares. Like people are very commonly clicking on the links which they do not, which are malicious links. They'll send you a link saying that Amazon is giving you free vouchers, or someone is giving you free vouchers, or forward this to 100 people. Those kind of forward messages. And once you click or run anything, they can redirect you to the malwares or redirect you to the UPI page where knowingly or unknowingly we may accept the request. Thereby, it transfers the money. So these sort of attacks that are being going through from the lockdown period. Now it is somewhat decreasing, but majorly on the time of actual 1.5 month period, right, which we had a serious lockdown. That time, these many attacks were huge. Okay, so that was a common attack that India faced on lockdown period. And when can HTTPS websites be compromised using proxies? So you're asking about HTTPS based website to password cracking. Obviously, yes, that can be performed. I could have shown you HTTPS website over here, but all the testing websites that we have for testing our hacking skills, all those are HTTP based websites. So obviously, when you want to try any attacks on anything on internet, you have to always try it on testing websites. Never try it on your own personal, or never try it on any other website which you do not own. So that's the reason I used testing website. But yes, you can do the same attack even on HTTP's website as well. Okay. Another query: how to get admin access of any website using burp suite? So there are multiple ways how admin access in a website will be available to you. So let me give you two scenarios. Okay, let's assume that you have built a website. So that's why I was coming to in website configuration. Let me first give you a hint, generally for everyone, how websites are created. So in website we have two parts: static web and dynamic web. Static web, where the typical old websites, which was looking something like Wikipedia, right? Today, if you see Wikipedia, it's a static website which has something like, it's just a statically written code where you see the HTML pages with the images and all those things, right? This is an example of how website was visible, let's say like 2 decades ago, right? 3 decades ago, almost 2 decades ago, more than 2 decades ago, right? So, but due to the intervention of technologies, the advancement of this all technology like Java, database, all those things, in today's world we have we have dynamic pages. So this is how the architecture that looks for static web, and this is how the architecture that is visible for dynamic web. Obviously, I'm just portraying it in terms of hacking. I'm not specifying this completely about how it is detailedly explaining about what happens. Obviously, that's not my intention here. I'm only giving you a surface view or a bird's view of hacking in terms of web application. Obviously, it's not detailed thing. So when to build a static web, it's very simple. You have to program your web pages, and you have to write web pages in HTML code, and you will store it on your browser. You'll be storing it on some location in your system, in your computer, and you will start IIS or Apache or Nginx, whatever it is. And as soon as you run it, the computer will become a web server, right? This is one way. Where a client wants to access your website, he will send you a web request. He will send you the page link, and the web page link will be fetched and given to the website client as it is. So he will ask you the request. You will make a request for viewing the page. You will give the page in HTML code, and you'll be able to view the data. So this is what static web is. In static web, there is no kinds of processing for user data, for client accessibility, for authentication authorization. No logic at all in static web. There's no logic in static web. The only is someone will ask for a file and you give the file. That's it. Okay. So if you want to gain administrator access of these type of website, in such cases, so I'm just explaining both. I'm just discussing the topics that we're going to be that I'm going to be discussing for static web as well, because this is what I'm going to be discussing even on static web as well. Okay. So it's all include the fourth session of today's session, right? So in static web, what we do is we will develop web pages and store it into some location. We'll turn on some application like Apache or Nginx or AIS that will turn our computer as a web server. As simple as that. So this is what we do on Wikipedia. This is what happens in Wikipedia. This is how most of the websites in today's world works. They're just web pages created by someone, and they just turn on the web server, and they have internet access, and they're all online in internet. As simple as that. There is no logic, there is no login, there is no logs, nothing over there. Okay, this is one way. So if you want to try and hack these type of website, if you want to gain access of this website, the methodology that I shared in the morning and today early session and the yesterday session, you have to use the same methodology. Perform port scanning, perform vulnerability scanning, you will identify some of the vulnerability, utilize that vulnerability to gain control of the machine, and that's how you can compromise and gain administrative access on these type of websites. That's on static websites. There are also another type of websites in which you have all the dynamic content. So if you observe, when you open up YouTube, right? YouTube web page looks similar for everyone, but the content that is visible to you, the content is unique for different people, right? So if I log in, I'll see all my suggestions, I'll see all my data over here, I'll see all my videos over here. If you log in, you see your own data, which means there is a logic, there is processing of code in the server end. So this is how your three-tier architecture or web application looks like. Here you will have, so this part is just static web. Along with static web, it will also have application server. It will also have database server, right? So all the data that you have stored in the website will be available in database, whereas everything that is processing on the data, anything, any logic, any processing, any validation, any authentication, any verification that happens, everything happens in application server. So this is where we come across web application. Okay, so a small application that is running on internet, so that when you want to run when you want to check something or run something, it will run using this particular application server. So any web application that we found, or any web application attack that you're finding in today's world, like cross scripting, SQL injection, all this XYZ stuff happens because the person who have written code of this application server, he had made certain mistakes. Okay, because of some developer made some mistakes on application server, the way how data is handled, because of that only web application vulnerabilities exist. Okay, so in tomorrow's session, we'll be looking up into file inclusions, SQL injection, cross scripting, all those XYZ stuff. When you look about those things, the vulnerability actually exists on the application server. So this is what we'll be looking up in tomorrow's session. So coming back to your query again, so the reason why I explained the web 1.0 and web 2.0 is because again, I had two versions of it. I need to complete that as well. And again, things, your query has dependency of this. That's the reason I explained this stuff. So what happens when you want to gain an administrative access over here? First thing, again, there are two ways. If you have manually written code of, if you have manually built this web application, if you have manually written code of the application server, if you have manually written the database, if you have manually written all the code, in such cases, you will have to find a vulnerability on this particular application, web application. Sorry. You have to find you have to find a vulnerability in this particular web application. Okay, like vulnerabilities like cross scripting, SQL injection. So majorly you can find vulnerability like SQL injection, or you can find vulnerability like remote file inclusions, or and malicious file upload. All this kind of vulnerability. Using that vulnerability, you can compromise or you can gain access on the victim computer. That is one way. Second thing, a lot of websites are not built manually. Which means obviously to build a website will take a huge amount of time, isn't it? Hence, what people do is people use something called content management system, okay? CMS, content management system. What this content management system does is basically you can use some third-party applications where they've already built an application for you. That is, they've already built an application logic. There's already a database. There's already a web server. All you need to do is you just need to do a drag and drop. You just need to do a UI changes. You just need to do alteration few templates, and your website is ready. So through CMS, you can build up a website within just few more minutes of time. So that is the advantage of CMS. Now, what is the disadvantage of CMS? Very simple. If we just click on in URL pk and let's say in site colon pk and in URL equal to /wp-login.php, you can find a list of all the websites which is running WordPress website, and it will redirect you directly to the login page of the WordPress website. So this is a huge loophole that is available on all your content management system. So in case if your target system is using a content management system, if your target website is built using a content management system, then what you need to do is each content management system will be having a login page through which administrator will log in. What you can do is you can perform password cracking over here, and if you're able to crack this password, that will take you directly to the administrative console of that particular attacker, of that particular website. So the way how to get administrative access on any website is basically two ways, and either identify some loophole through a network, or identify a loophole through web application, or if the website is built using a content management system, you can perform password cracking on that particular website or the content management system and exploit it. Clear? I hope that quite clarified. I hope the overall understanding was pretty much clear. Like, when you give me some popular tools to find out DOS attack. So, okay, that gives me two types of info. That is, To find the DOS is basically a vulnerability, right? So I've already given you Nessus or any other vulnerability scanner through which you can identify DOS vulnerability. So you can find which machine is vulnerable with DOS or not. Now to attack DOS, you can use tools like HOIC and LOIC. You just go to Google and just type HOIC download. You can find this nice looking tool. So the tool requires just you to select the targets. How the tools look like. So I cannot do it on my personal computer. So I'm going to show you. Just need to provide your URL that you want to hack, the intensity it is, how much threads you want to put, and just click on target. It will do the laser. So you can use HOIC, I-orbit ion cannon, and to initiate a DOS. Okay. So hope so far it's pretty much clear. Any other queries, guys, regarding the topics that we have discussed? So this was, I think today was a pretty lengthy session because of the contents. So yes, we started with our exploitation with Linux, Unix-based missions. So we saw how to compromise a mission, how to compromise a Unix-based mission using Metasploit. It was a continuation of what we did in yesterday's session. We had found a vulnerability, a remote code execution vulnerability on a victim system, and we utilized that, and we saw how to gain control of our victim mission through our Metasploit using a remote code execution vulnerability. And after that, we started up our password cracking, where we saw about how to crack Windows passwords, the methodologies, the techniques and tools, and the basic concepts. Later, we saw about how to crack Unix passwords, similarly, methodology, what is the basic requirement, and the tools. Later, we started into online password cracking to see how can you crack literally any website's password. Okay, as long as you have an efficient word list. Again, one more disclaimer is that if you want to crack any passwords, word list is a vital part. So you have to obviously use a word list to efficiently crack a website, or to efficiently crack a password. Later that we discussed about a few of the attack topics, and a few of the and we discussed about web 1.0. I mean, web, static web and dynamic web. Remember, static web and dynamic web is also called as web 1.0, which is static web, and web 2.0 is called as dynamic web. And fortunately, we only have 2 versions of web. We don't have anything else. Okay. The major difference is that static web is the web page which only has contents. There is no logic in it. Kind of processing. There is no kind of processing in it. In dynamic web page, it depends upon the client. So depending upon client, it will provide the data. So hence, it will have some processing, which means obviously since it has processing, it will have its own vulnerability. So all the web application vulnerability comes up only in dynamic web. Okay. So hope so far it was pretty much clear. Please let me know if you have any queries, guys. So meanwhile, what I'll do is I'll export this file into the PDF version, and as usual, I'll be forwarding it to ma'am, and she'll append it and add it along with your yesterday's data, that is your recording, so it will be accessible for you all guys. And what I would recommend is everyone to practice the practical part that we have already did, so that we can be more proficient in those attacks. Okay, so that's it from my side. Please let me know if you have any queries, and over to you, ma'am, if there are any queries.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Bharat sir. I think it was very, very informative session, marathon session, yet another marathon session, I would say, right from 2 o'clock to 6. I really appreciate your stamina for, talking hours together, sir. Really. Thank you very much. I guess the participants also would join with me in agreeing that it was a very, very informative session. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Sridhar sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, also regarding the tomorrow's schedule, I think we'll start tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah, sir. Actually, sir, 11 o'clock to 12. I think there is one session by Mr. Umesh.
Correct.
And Bharat sir, can we start at 2 o'clock, sir? Tomorrow also 2 to 4:30 time.
Yes, ma'am. I'm okay with that.
Because as per the schedule, it is like 3:15 or something. Yeah, to 6 o'clock. 2:45 to 6 o'clock, if I'm right, I think.
Okay, sir. For me, it's okay. Is it okay for you, sir?
3:15.
What time, ma'am? 2 o'clock to?
Sir, Sridhar sir, I think we have one session from 11 to 12:30, I guess, by Umesh. The next session, can we next
Yes,
session from 2 o'clock to 4:30? Can we wind up by 4:30 tomorrow?
Yes, ma'am, we can do that. I think Bharat is also free,
Bharat
so we
sir,
can do
is
that,
that
ma'am.
possible?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It is
Sure.
completely.
Yeah, that will be better. I think participants tomorrow we'll have 11 to 12, 12:30 one session. One more, two more sessions. I mean, continuous sessions will be from 2 o'clock to 4:30. So tomorrow we will be winding up by 4:30.
4:30.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, ma'am. Great.
So I thank
Okay.
both
Yeah,
Sridhar and Bharat once again
thank
for
you, ma'am.
being very, very
Thank you,
cooperative
Bharat.
and
Yeah.
informative, the informative sessions. Participants, I thank you all for your active listening and actively participating in the sessions. Very, very interactive it was. Thank you all. I hope the same cooperation for the next 2 days. Have a great evening. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. Thanks, Bharat. Have a great evening. Bye. Thank you all.